Well, it is 26 degrees centigrade here in Abuja. Humidity today is 80% at the moment. It's pretty hot for a while now, and the air conditioner in some people's cars, we're laughing at them the other day because it was crazy. But all the same, you have to just keep going. Heat wave nonetheless. But this right here is the Wuse Market. There was an incident there yesterday morning, of which the police, the authorities there, all concerned and doing certain things. Well, yes, the market there actually was touched, and so that's why they cordoned off those areas. But there's a backstory to the inferno in that market, which you get to see a closer shot very soon, Mark.
Well, it's not the kind of shot we really wanted to wake you up with this morning, but hey, as they say, it is what it is. There was an incident, and we just think it is important to highlight this particular incident which occurred in the famous Wuse Market.
That's right.
Pretty highbrow. It's also the market where people who want to buy gold, it also has a gold souk, interestingly. Why are you smiling, Chamberlain?
I don't go there to buy gold.
But the people who cannot go to Dubai these days, or Saudi Arabia, or India, as the case might be, this is their new stop for buying gold. But thankfully, it wasn't. I don't know whether to thankfully in this instance, but it wasn't the gold side that was burnt. I don't think that any of the traders would be happy that any side at all was torched. Especially since the incident that led to this was totally avoidable. From what we gather, you know, some errant member of the public had been taken before a mobile court.
Ibrahim Yahaya, 27-year-old man.
Yes, who was said to have been arrested by the Abuja Environmental Protection Board Task Force and was taken before a mobile court. And he was convicted, but he was trying to jump conviction. And some people thought that the way to arrest him was to shoot in the market, which, of course, did not add up. It led to people getting very angry. It's not clear if the bullet actually met this Ibrahim Yahya, but people got very angry, and, you know, some confusion ensued. We understand that cars were burned, etc. And then police now had to shoot tear gas to disperse the rioting protesters, which then led to an inferno. We understand that the tear gas, you know, landed on some roofs. And given how the weather has been so hot, it is not any surprise that all you need is just a spark somewhere, and things that are combustible, we easily burst into flames. So this is the situation that we got in Wuse Market. Thank God it wasn't any more than what we're currently saying, but there'll be big questions as to how those traders are going to get compensated. Do they subscribe to any insurance? You know, questions of the sort, and how this sort of situation can be prevented in future. So
the statement by the police PRO, FCT, SP Ade, says that the police command has arrested the correctional officer, a certain Usman Ishaya Magiji, who shot the victim, that's Ibrahim. So he's in custody, and they are investigating the matter. So they'll be coming up with more details much later. So the FCT, they've got those on their hands to sort it out. But in the meantime, the FCT minister will be before the Senate in a closed-door session today. So he's got quite a lineup to deal with today. Ayo.
Well, that is quite the skyline today, and most certainly something to give people some peace and calm in their hearts to go about their duties. But where am I taking you this morning? This place. You hear Akeredolu Road? Well, this is the Akeredolu end of the Akeredolu Road that you famously hear about in the city of Lagos. That's the famous bus stop right there. It goes all the way, this particular goes all the way to Jibowu and flies over into Funshaw Williams Avenue that leads you to the Lagos Island, linking the Carter Bridge and Echo Bridge, and on and on and on. Good morning. The temperature in Lagos at this time is 28 degrees with 86% humidity. Welcome to Sunrise Daily. This is Lagos. I'm Ayo Makinde. Well, A number of things will be happening this morning, as we have been famous, as Chamberlain has mentioned, but one of the things that we'll also be finding at the top of the next hour, 10 o'clock, is business news. And what are we looking at for you today? There is this raise in some prices. The customs duty raise has been increased, and that is the subject of our conversation this morning on Business Morning on Sunrise Daily. Right, with that, let's go quickly into the papers today.
We'll start with the Guardian newspaper here today. Budget padding, we're all culpable. Oh, that's a different style of a theme this morning. But look at the lead story. 500 million naira awards, in parentheses, to ranking senators unsettle exposed NAS rot. So that's what they lead with here this morning. A lot of which many might have heard. But just hang on, we'll also delve into that here today. But this is the front page, The Guardian today.
You know, Yoruba people have a saying, Kilagbe, Kiladru. What did we throw? What did we carry? What did we throw? You know, what were they expecting and what came out of the sitting yesterday? Very interesting situation. Take a look at New Telegraph. It's not cause for laughter on the front page of the Daily this morning. 33 days to 10th anniversary of Chibok girls kidnapped. Bandits again invade Kaduna community, abduct 61. So this story broke yesterday evening. In seeming renewed focus on school children, women. So you see them going for vulnerable groups. And this is happening in a month where we're supposed to be celebrating women. Look at this. Soldiers stop them from taking more victims. That's according to residents. IGP deploys mobile police unit. Gumi offers to negotiate with terrorists. Timing of abductions pointer to motive. That's according to Afenifere. Worries over 40 trillion naira ransom demand. So we understand those who took the school children are asking for 40 trillion naira as a ransom. Well, let's leave it there for New Telegraph. Ayo.
Can you imagine?
The lead story of Business Day newspaper, I mean, it's just difficult to imagine, Chamberlain, just to be honest with you. Well, the lead story of Business Day newspaper this morning talks about other things that are literally taking our attention. Rising diesel cost chokes businesses. That's the big story on the front page of Business Day this morning. The details of it continue on page 2 of the paper this morning.
Well, government usually says we don't negotiate with terrorists. That wraps it up. But a look at some of the dailies here this morning. But we will be back to take you through what transpired on the floor of the Senate in a moment.
In this era of recovery, ability to engage virtual stakeholders successfully could be a veritable source of sustainable competitive advantage. Embark on a transformative journey with Texam's Effective Leadership in a Distributed World program. Join us from 9th to 23rd March 2024 for a dynamic 3-week online experience and a 3-day face-to-face session in the UK. This program will be delivered by illustrious Oxford-trained Professor Roger Dell's London Business School alumnus, Professor Paul Griffith, and Oscar-winning Ambassador Charles Crawford. Secure 25% early bird discount. Pay 2,407,500 naira for online and 7,864,500 naira for the UK and online sessions. Achieve, optimize, and win with Texam. For more information, email exec@texam.co.uk or call +44 7425 883791. Texam. Insights that inspire. Actions that change the world.
Heartburn and indigestion? Try Gestede. My recommendation for the past 26 years, Gestede. Reliable remedy for heartburn, indigestion, flatulence, and acidity.
Do you know that you can now print all your essential items for events without even having to leave your home? It's the Cash Prints Combo Deal for all events.
Yes!
Weddings, conferences, birthdays, burials, etc. Starting from 495,000 naira only. You get 50 invites, 50 A2 size posters, 50 16-page brochures, 1 large backdrop banner, 1 roll-up banner, 50 jotters with pens, and 50 souvenir carrier bags. Whatever event you're planning, we can adjust to your budget and quantities. Just send your pictures and other information through WhatsApp, and we shall send a design for your approval. Approve your design, and we will produce with super high-quality digital print technology. We can even arrange delivery to your location. Call us now on 0913-156-5016 or 0812-794-9323 or visit our social media pages. Cash Prints, digital printing at super speed.
Ovaltine kyakkyawan zaɓi domin yara masu basira.
Madonna University, Nigeria invites you to her Silver Jubilee celebration. It is the first private and Catholic university in Nigeria. As a build-up, it will be hosting the IFCU conference from the 17th to the 19th of March 2024 at 9 a.m. daily. The grand finale for the Silver Jubilee celebration will hold on the 20th of March 2024 at 9 a.m. All events will hold at the University Auditorium of Madonna University, Elele, River State. Special guest of honor, His Excellency President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR, President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Distinguished speaker and guest of honor, Right Honorable Benjamin Kalu, Deputy Speaker of House of Representatives. Keynote speaker, Most Reverend Matthew Hassan Huka, Catholic Bishop of Sokoto Diocese. Host, Very Reverend Father Professor E.M.B. Ede, Founder and Chancellor, Madonna University, Nigeria. Highlights for the event will be book launch, paper presentation, and awards. Madonna University, Nigeria Silver Jubilee Celebration, a university with a difference.
It all began with this controversial interview granted by a lawmaker from Bauchi Central's Senator Abdul Ningi to the BBC Hausa, suggesting that 3 trillion naira from the 2024 budget might have been padded. The interview sparked a huge debate, and so when plenary resumed, it was not the usual.
Page 693.
A motion is raised on a matter of urgent importance by the chairman of the Senate committee in charge of the budget. He reads part of the transcripts from the controversial Hausa interview.
Apart from what the National Assembly did on the floor, there was another budget that was done on the ground which we didn't know.
And I have the documents.
The man in the eye of the storm jostled to speak to defend himself.
My attention was called to this particular forward submission. I will check it. Myself, Senator Dab, Senator Karimi, Senator Medoki. And they showed their anger about this particular statement. And I said, listen to the House of Virgin. In the House of Virgin, did you hear me mention Apagio's name? Did you hear me mention padding? We discovered some senatorial districts in this particular document. Some senatorial districts have up to 120 billion. And my senatorial district has just 2 billion.
The lawmakers also have a bone to pick with Senator Sumaila Kawu from Kano State.
We are not in any way intend to undermine either as a president, Senate president, or the Senate. We are matured enough.
Use your mic and read out what you posted.
Apparently, we discovered 3 trillion was inserted into the budget without location. I am not the originator and I am not the maker of this.
Look at the content, look at the English. Is it senators? Is that our quality? We will deal with the issue of the Senate of the budget, but we have to also deal with our ethical standard in the Senate.
We are going forth and back on these issues and coming up with issues of the budget and individual issues concerning what came to our various constituencies. If we want to go into those issues, all of us are culpable. Some senators here, so-called senior senators, got 500 million each. I am a ranking senator, I didn't get. Did I go to the press?
The lawmaker had struck a chord as the Senate immediately descended into a rowdy session before the Senate President restores calm by invoking the Senate's rules.
The Senate, or if it is in the committee, shall be silenced so that the President of the Senate, or sitting as chairman, may be heard without any interruption.
When it was calm, Senator Jaribe quickly offers to clarify his earlier statement.
I said 500 million for projects. I was drawing from the statement Abdul Ningi made to me.
These are not trivial matters for the lawmakers, many of whom sought apologies or penalty for what they described as outright falsehood.
If one lacks integrity, and we are found to associate with anyone who lacks integrity, they say it is birds of the same feathers that flock together. The confidence of the Nigerian people in the institution of the National Assembly. In fact, way to go, in my view, is for both of them to recount what they have said and to say that they didn't say so, or if they said so, that they made a mistake of the head, not of the heart, and ask that they be forgiven.
So the conversation continues, shall we say, but what's the latest? What are the perceptions and whatever it is that needs to be understood that hasn't been understood? Let's speak to someone who should know. Senator Gershom Bassey is a former lawmaker with the 8th and 9th Assembly and of the Senate, and he's here with us in the studio. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
What do you make of all of this, first of all?
It's not unusual. These things happen in the Senate, in the National Assembly. I think that's what we're there for. We're there to speak our minds and to be very open about what we say to each other. So I think this is normal parliamentary procedure. I don't see anything unusual about it.
You said these things happen. Should they happen?
Yes. Yes. I mean, if the only issue I see there in all that has happened is that there were certain meetings that were held. What has now come out is that there were certain meetings that were held, and there were certain decisions that were taken in confidence in those meetings with the Senate President. And of course, senators are distinguished. We're supposed to all be honorable. So if there were meetings held and there were agreements reached, then naturally, as distinguished or honorable people, we should stick to those agreements. I think that's the real issue there. But as for the issue of raising concerns or not raising concerns, I think that's natural. And I think the Senate President did very well. From what we are told in the meeting, he said, look, if you have concerns, then I'm very interested in knowing what these concerns are. So let's wait, see your final investigation, and then we will treat the issue. So I think that was the way to go.
So when you talk about the, conversations or decisions made that were not stuck to, in this context, what do you think those conversations could be?
Well, you had a process that was ongoing from all that has emerged. You had a process that was ongoing. A senator had hired, or a group of senators had hired a consultant, and he had produced an interim report. That interim report was discussed. The matter was not concluded. So the process was ongoing. And I think the Senate President, in his wisdom, and he did very well, was to say, hey, look, you guys, let's get to the root of this matter. These issues that you are raising, let's get to the root of this matter. And it made a lot of sense. The problem was not sticking to what was agreed in the closed-door meeting. I think that's where all these issues arise.
So are they in any way connected with those issues that you talk about? Are they in any way connected with these allegations raised by Senator Ningi?
Well, if you listen to I listened to the debates yesterday on TV, and so if you listen to those issues, you will find that Ningi had raised these issues with the Senate President, with his other colleagues from the forum, the Northern Senators Forum, and they had reached an agreement. According to what we heard yesterday, they had reached an agreement. And the problem was that before that process was concluded, an interview was granted. Now, the next issue was that because the information that was being discussed in that interview was not conclusive, that is what created the problem. Now we find that, a lot of those suspicions have been clarified. Yesterday, the chairman of appropriation stood up. I listened to him very attentively. He stood up and clarified everything to the last kobo. So he was able to clarify those things. He first read Ningi's interviews and his concerns, Ningi's concerns, I won't say. Which, why not? You are a senator. You have to have concerns. But those concerns, the Senate President was addressing them, and now we find out that those concerns appear to have been unfounded because the chairman of appropriation has clearly and very eloquently addressed those things in some detail. Not only did he address it in some detail, he went ahead to give precedence and say, look, in the last 3 budgets, the same procedure had been followed. That is, you have a budget. What had happened was that there was a budget of 25 trillion passed, but then there were MDA budgets which were not captured in the document, but were all part of the national budget. And so he said, look, this is the area. There's the so-called 3.2 trillion that you say is not there. It's there. It's in the MDA budgets. And so on, etc. So these issues were clearly addressed yesterday.
So what then do you make? I mean, you said earlier before we came on that perhaps there are some misconceptions on the part of Senator Ningi.
No. Look, Senator Ningi, as far as I can see, was doing his job as a senator, which was, look, I have some concerns, and so on and so forth, as a senator. And he did the right thing by going to the Senate President and saying, Mr. Senate President, I have some concerns.
But are those concerns always also valid to put in public domain when, as you said, they are being addressed?
That's the point. The point is, I have those concerns. And Mr. Senate President says, oh, I'm also interested in these concerns that you have raised. How, and he explains and says, we have an interim report. Do you understand what I'm saying? You have an interim report. And he says, and Senate President says, okay, let the report be completed, and then we go into the matter that he is also interested.
So it is for you, from what you see, you can see it more as a governance concern.
Procedural concern.
Procedural concern that relates with governance.
In what sense? I'm not clear.
Because, I mean, if it's... where I'm going is how much of this is political, how much of this is really fundamental?
Well, in the Northern Senators Forum, there are many political parties. So clearly it cannot be political. If the Northern Senators were meeting with the Senate President across party lines, then clearly it's not political. It is clearly a concern of senators. And they were quite right to go and meet the Senate President to express these concerns.
That is taken. Yes. Because the reason I'm asking this question is so that the confidence in the Senate can be restored, because even the Senate, quite a few of them, including the President of the Senate, believes that the Senate, the image of the 10th Senate has been severely damaged by this particular occurrence that has happened now. So that's the reason I'm asking the question. If it is a political thing, let it be clear that it's political, because that is the angle that it would seem like that's the angle that Senator Bamidele was speaking from.
Well, they have more information than I have, but from looking at it as a citizen of Nigeria, looking in, and not as a 10th Assembly senator, what I see is that there was a concern by some senators across party lines, and they did the right thing by approaching the Senate president. The problem arose when one of them now went and granted an interview expressing some of these concerns, albeit in a fairly sensational way, to the BBC. That was where the problem arose, because the matter was still an ongoing matter, and nobody had opposed the investigation by the consultants or whatever. In fact, they encouraged it. So I don't see, that was where from what I see just as a citizen looking in out. I haven't spoken to anybody in the Senate. I haven't spoken to any of my the 10th Assembly senators. But as an outsider looking in, that's how I saw it. And I paid attention to the debates yesterday.
But then you also definitely listened to how scandalized some of the members of the Senate feel about this particular issue.
Well, it's an issue of privilege. They were quite right. Of course they were right. A situation where because you were impatient to wait till the end of the process, you have jumped the gun, and allegations have entered the public space, which have now been proved not to be accurate. Then the senators have you have brought the Senate into disrepute.
Especially at a time when even the Senate itself is struggling with credibility from Nigerians.
The National Assembly has always been the whipping boy in this our democracy. It's not new. So that is an aside. The main issue is what happened in this instance, and I think that in this instance, everything that played out yesterday was okay.
So essentially it shouldn't have happened, and that is noted. But the point that I'm trying to make here is, if this shouldn't have happened and it happened, and as you said, it is not new, it is something that happens from time to time, how then do we measure, the credibility of the National Assembly? Because that is what is at stake now. A good number of Nigerians believe that they are sharing money.
Why is that? Why should the credit? Why is there? Look, Senator Solomon yesterday got up and explained.
I understand.
No, I'm coming. Okay. I explained in a lot of detail exactly where he accounted for the money. He accounted for the budget yesterday. He even went further to have the budgets of the various MDAs that added up to the 3.2 trillion. All that was there. Now, you can say, okay, we have not seen, he has not opened it up for us to see and all that, but the documents were there with him. But I'm not hearing from the media, I'm not hearing a lot about that explanation. Rather, there appears to be this insistence on the so-called...
It's the very same thing that I'm saying.
Yes.
Because, I mean, we're running out of time, but it's the very same thing that I'm saying. More people believe the salacious news because it went out.
Yes.
And as far as any Nigerian is concerned now, the Senate is just trying to play catch-up, trying to cover up. That's why I'm talking about the credibility of the Senate. And you said it is not something new and that the Senate has been the whipping boy over time. So how do we reverse that trend? So Nigerians can have confidence in their Senate.
They did something yesterday which was really good. And that was to have the debate in the open. It could have been a closed-door session, but they had it in the open. And that transparency, that openness, is what begins to give credibility to the entire Senate. It was open. Everybody could see what transpired, all the allegations and counter-allegations, the transcripts were read, everything was there, everybody could see it. So if you're looking for the truth was on display yesterday.
Okay. So lastly, do you see any justification in the discipline meted out to Senator Ningi?
It's normal. It's in our rules, or it's in the rules of the 10th Assembly. So, I don't see anything unusual about it. But I do like the fact that even though they gave him a 3-month suspension, they gave him a get out of jail free card, as it were, which is that, look, just apologize and everything will be okay. I like that. So they tempered justice with mercy.
All right. So do you see this happening again, or you think this will put paid?
No, this is a parliament now. People,
it will always happen.
You know, people have different points of view. People have different opinions. These are elected officials.
So when they happen, what should Nigerians do?
In terms of what?
Perception.
What I would advise is to listen to the debates and let us all, as Nigerians, make up our own minds. Let's not see it through the lens of any particular person, journalist or whatever. Let us go to the facts, look for the facts, and make up our own minds.
Senator Gershom Bassey, former lawmaker, thank you so much for your time this morning.
Thank you.
And all the best all the time.
Thank you. Thank you.
This conversation continues right after now.
First time in Nigerian history today, we're operating 2 different budgets. One budget approved by the National Assembly.
All right, yes, indeed. It does continue right now. We've got Senator Abba Moro, who is a minority leader, joining us here in the studios. Good morning, Senator. Thank you for joining us on the program today.
Good morning. It's my pleasure to be with you.
Well, some of the budget highlights, actually, which is in question, the total expenditure, which was passed by the National Assembly, 28.7 trillion naira. The Senate passed that budget with about an increase of 1.2 trillion naira. The benchmark of oil price was pegged at $77.96 per barrel. 1.7 trillion to be approved for statutory transfers, 8.2 trillion naira to be approved for debt service. So some of the highlights of this 2024 budget. But Senator Ningi, at least some of those issues that were raised yesterday are part of what we continue talking about here this morning. Senator, can we really say the dust has settled, particularly in context of what Senator Kwame Bamidele said about perhaps some of the reasons why this happened in the first place?
Well, thank you very much. The Senate is an institution, and we'll continue to have debates on issues, especially of national importance. And so, for as long as that is there, we'll continue to have disagreements to agree. And yesterday, you saw what played out. We disagreed with ourselves, eventually came to agree on what was inappropriate, and of course, going by our rules, what should be done. And so, as far as that issue is concerned, for now, for Senator Ningi, the dust has settled. But of course, the issues are still there.
I think I would like to start from what transpired on the floor yesterday, or even before what happened on the floor of the House, because I saw you on the floor, very upset, obviously, you know, on your feet. And I think at some point you were even wagging a finger at fellow senators, and I don't know, I couldn't hear what you were saying, but you looked visibly angry yesterday on the floor. Before the conversation got to where it got to on the floor of the National Assembly, when you first of all heard the interview that Senator Ningi had granted, what were your initial reactions that 3 trillion naira could not be traced to any projects in the budget? Did you think that that was something that was probable in the budget that you had passed?
Well, I object to the approach by Senator Ningi, because as a Senate, we have institutional procedures for addressing our concerns. And unless it becomes absolutely necessary, we don't have to recourse to the court of public opinion, because we are senators. The budget in question was passed by the Senate. Senator Ningi is a senator. Is a member, or was a member of the Appropriation Committee. And so, I am from the North. And he purported to speak for the North. And why I was angry was that Senator Kau Smaila, who is the spokesperson for the Northern Senators Forum, came before me and said that he was going to address the press. He was going out to address the press.
On this same matter?
On this same matter, while the debate was going on. And I said, hey, you don't do that. You raise issues. We're tackling the issues. We're debating the issues. We're examining the issues. And here you are, you want to go and address the press. Go ahead and address the press. That was why I raised my hands. Because as a minority leader, Senator Kau Smaila is a member of the NPP.
So the minority caucus?
Minority caucus. So it's within me. He signed for me to be minority leader. And so why would he not accept my advice? Because as people have commented now, the Senate is already having some level of credibility problem. So why would an individual, for instance, arrogate to himself the power to know it all, the power to say it all, and at what time and where? It's not correct.
This is not the first time that we've heard this sort of allegations before now. I mean, budget padding has come with almost every single budget that we have passed in the National Assembly. The National Assembly has always said, look, there's no such thing as padding. Constituency projects are a matter of privilege, and these things are recognized even in places that we have also cited as examples of democracy. However, this was coming from a fellow senator. Do you think that even the Senate itself reacted in a manner that showed that he wanted to prove to the senator, assuming he was misled? Because according to him, he employed a consultant. He got a consultant to look at the budget, and he found out that there was 3 trillion naira not attached to anything. Even though he's now debunked the initial interview which he granted, or which was translated to say that there were 2 budgets, one that the National Assembly passed and one which the presidency was operating. I think the presidency responded to that initial interview, and he still said, oh, he was misunderstood. But he maintains that that 3 trillion naira is not attached to any budget. Do you think that the National Assembly has, done enough to say, look, Senator, where did you see this 3 trillion naira, and maybe offer some explanations as to what misgivings he might have?
Yeah, I think that the Senate did the appropriate thing. I was there. Yes, budget padding may not be mentioned here now in the 10th Senate for the first time, because previous budgets have been criticized on the basis of budget padding. But this is the first time that a participant senator who was honestly engaged in the whole process is coming out to say what I did was wrong and rubbing it on all of us. I think it's not correct. And let me say here that, like I said, there are procedures in the Senate for ventilating concerns. And in this case, Senator Ningi and Senator Kau Smaila, went to the Senate President to seek audience with the Senate President, with the Northern Senators. And all of us, across party lines, attended that meeting, or virtually all of us attended that meeting.
When was that? After he had granted the BBC interview?
Well, I don't know whether it was after or before, but Senator Kau Smaila said that it was before the meeting. But whether it was before the meeting or after the meeting, it was inappropriate. Because you cannot seek audience with the Senate President and the Senate leadership to express some concern and grant interview to preempt the reaction that the President or Senate Presidency will have. And so our own concern was that you have brought something. The Senate President has said, well, I'm not aware of this pattern. I'm not aware of this non-existing project that we are talking about that was allocated 3.7 trillion naira. But since you have raised it, give me the document. Let me go through it. Then I will get back to you. That was what we resolved in that meeting. And the next thing, for whatever reason, the interview surfaced. And we said, no, for us, it was inappropriate. For me, It was uncalled for.
So the matter was already being handled within the confines of the National Assembly?
Right. That was what transpired.
But why do you think he did that?
Well, I don't know why he should do that, but if you recall his interview translated, he also complained about the imposition of the minority leadership. But as far as he was concerned, it's a Hausa Fulani. There are more Hausa Fulanis from the Northeast who wanted to be Senate minority leader and the rest of them. And so if you put all of them together, and the fact that we had agreed to go through this arrangement and see how we can come out of it, then I think it's marks of mischief. And it was absolutely irresponsible to do that, because why would you want to seek to rubbish the institution that we belong to? Why would you want to seek, for instance, to castigate the process that you participated in? Everybody knows, I know, it's wrong.
While the conversation was going on, because we could see that senators were divided. Yes, a number of senators spoke up in, just from the perspective from which you're speaking now, that, the process was already going on. They believe that their privileges were breached. But we also see that, further than that, issues of transparency were raised. I mean, some people were talking about how, senators, some senators got 500 million for constituency projects, and other senators got, way less than that. There are questions about the take-home pay of the Senate president, how senators are not even privy to that. So it does appear that beyond the issues that were raised by Senator Ningi in his interview, there is a growing, and some people might say this is political, because I heard Senator Okoyemi Bamidele saying that, their attempts to try to remove the Senate president from his seat, it might as well be all political. But there are questions around issues of transparency when it comes to fiscal matters within the National Assembly. Do you think that there is sufficient transparency in the Senate, even among senators?
Well, that is a part of the damage that the unguided, misguided utterances of Senator Ningi has done to the institution of the Senate. Speaking from the perspective of zones and regions in the National Assembly that is supposed to evolve a system that works for all, certainly was inappropriate. Yes, as a pressure group, we want the best for the North. But is that the right approach? That's certainly not the right approach as far as I'm concerned. And so what it has thrown up is that every other sector of Nigeria now becomes suspicious. The South-South Senators Forum, that had become virtually moribund, is waking up now, because they now see a kind of gang up by some sections of the country against their own. That is not healthy for the Senate. That is not good for the Senate.
Senator Moro, you're raising other issues. I mean, yes, indeed, there are big questions as to why we even have these caucuses before, in the first place. Before now, it used to be the caucus of the ruling party and minority caucuses. Now we have caucuses zoned around senatorial groupings, or I say geopolitical groupings, northeast, northwest, south, and all those kinds of things. I mean, people have been wondering, is this helping the cause of unity within the country, or is this dividing the country even further? There are big questions around that. But the question I'm raising is questions around fiscal discipline and fiscal transparency among senators themselves. When you now begin to hear other contributions from other senators who are bringing in other issues apart from what Senator Ningi had raised, it does appear that there are other underlying issues already brewing among some senators before this matter was raised by Senator Ningi. So I'm asking you as a senator, do you think that matters around fiscal transparency have been handled sufficiently within the 10th National Assembly?
Well, for issues of transparency and responsibility, there's no system that is perfect. But again, like I said, how do you juxtapose the issue at hand, the issue of 3.7 trillion naira that cannot be strictly attached to any project, and the issue of the salary of the Senate President. When did that come up? When did that come up? And when somebody rises up on the floor of the Senate and says, senior senators, ranking senators, all ranking senators were given 500 million naira. When I accosted him, he said he didn't mean 500 million naira cash, but 500 million naira in projects, which goes, if it is true, to the constituencies. And I said, why did you raise this? Why would you raise it? So if in one breath, he says all ranking senators, all senior senators were given 500 million naira, and he says, as a ranking senator, he didn't get.
But Senator, how are those projects allocated, though?
Projects of what?
The constituency projects. What's the modality? What template do they use?
The rules of the Senate provide for, I think, 300% of your earning as your constituency project. And you prioritize, as a lawmaker, to allocate these monies to projects to your constituents, using whatever yardstick you want to use. For some of us, we ask our constituents, because the allowances, project allowances, will not go around all the needs of our constituents. What do you want? Some want water, some want electricity, some want roads. So this is how we allocate the funds. But outside that, every office has allowance attached to it.
Is it equal?
No, it can't be equal. It can't be equal. We have leadership positions that, by the estimation of the Senate, has more responsibilities. Because even among senators, they come to you outside your constituency. The senators come to you and say, look, as a leader, maybe you have 1 million, 2 million naira extra for your budget. Can you give me some? And so in this instant case, you can't afford not to.
Yeah, but are senators aware? I mean, if you say, yes, it cannot be equal because, ranking is certainly something that is very important among senators and is taken quite seriously. And that also reflects in terms of how much people are allocated. Are people aware? Are fellow senators aware of how much other senators are given within the chambers of the National Assembly?
They should be. They should be, because it's an open process.
Okay, are you aware?
I'm aware. That is why I said allowances, project allowances are not equal. Because if I'm telling you now, and that is the truth, that 300% of your earning is allocated to you as a senator for your constituency project. If I am minority leader, if Senator Akpabio is the Senate President, his earning is higher, definitely.
Do you know his earning?
And therefore,
do you know his earning? Are you aware of how much he earns?
Well, I don't know how much he's earning, because how much Senator Akpabio is earning is personal to him. And part of the things that we're arguing against here is the inappropriateness of somebody prying into somebody's... Why will you do that?
He's paid from the coffers of government.
He paid for the coffers. If you want to know, you go to the finance department and find out.
Are all ranking senators...
It's not for you to speculate.
Are all ranking senators supposed to earn the same?
All ranking senators?
Yeah.
Yes, they earn the same, unless you're a principal officer.
But he is, from what people glean from what he's saying, is that even as a ranking senator, he doesn't get what ranking senators get.
Let me tell you, I've been there. This is the second time now. The Senate presidency sometimes allocates to senators, sometimes on demand, from their own allowance. There was a time...
From whose allowance?
From the Senate President's allowance.
He allocates to senators?
Yes. There was a time in the 9th Senate, I went to the Senate President and I said, look, I have this critical problem in my constituency. This money, for me, will not be enough. Please, can you from your own allowance. Give me some money for some project. And he granted 100 million naira allocation to me from his own allowance to cushion that deficit in my allocation to my constituency. And every senator knows this. It's not a secret matter. Every senator knows that the Senate President has more money allocated to his office because of the enormity of his responsibility across the country.
So, considering what has happened yesterday, is there a need for the Senate or National Assembly at that to say, okay, look, let's have a second look at our process? Why do some people think some things are not transparent? Are there areas that we should make a lot more transparent from what has happened yesterday?
Yes. Upon the assumption of office of the current Senate President, our rules were amended to take care of exigent situations that we saw as pitfalls. And so...
Like yesterday was a pitfall?
Oh, of course. What dropped yesterday was a wake-up call.
In the area of transparency?
In the area of transparency. There's no doubt about it. And that is why all of us supported what the Senate chairman on appropriation threw up yesterday. He said, hey, look, this money is not missing. This is where it is. This is where it is. And this is where it has come from. It was there before all of us. And so what many senators expected was that, hey, Senator Ningi, you said that your consulting firm has not given you the totality of what you requested from him, the review of the budget. This is an interim report. If it was an interim report that he presented to us, and now the chairman of appropriation has said, this is what happened. This is what happened. I thought that it would have been more statesman. It would have saved us all these hassles if he had come up and said, look, fine, with what you have presented, I have seen it. This money is not missing. It's not hanging in the air. And therefore, fellow senators, I am sorry. I gave the information out based on what I knew, but now I know better. Simple. And it could have ended there.
You say that his actions were inappropriate.
Yeah.
But is that of the Senate appropriate for suspending him? Because, I mean, we have several people who say, look, the 7th senator is protected by Legislative Powers and Privileges Act with respect to the opinion he holds. But we've also seen cases, Senator Ovioma Agege, Senator Dino Melaye, Senator Ndume himself, who the court then say, look, pay him all his entitlements, and that it was illegal to suspend him. But Senate went again and suspended him. Some people said, look, that action by itself is illegal.
Yeah. But I think I want you to know that privileges are not absolute. You have privileges, you have rights, I have privileges,
yeah, but what about
I have rights.
In context of the court's decision?
If your actions in the course of our conduct infringes on my privilege, I'll voice it out. You can speak for me unless you get my consent.
I hear that, but there are clear precedents in this matter where the court has said it's illegal to suspend the senator.
Yes, the cases that you have mentioned are cases that are unique in themselves.
They're suspension.
Suspension. But the rule of the Senate has provision for suspension.
Is the rule superior to the Constitution?
The Constitution?
Is the rule superior to the judgments and precedents that said, look, you cannot suspend a senator?
No. I am not sure that any court can say you can't suspend a senator.
3 cases have been decided on suspension of senators.
On suspension, Senator on the circumstances prevailing at the time.
But the bottom line was, you cannot suspend them. All those cases were decided.
I am not aware, because I read the rules yesterday. And we have in the rules, if you breach a privilege within the chambers, you are suspended for 14 days or 17 days. If it is outside the Senate and it impugns on the integrity of individuals and the Senate as an institution, the rules are very clear there. I do not know of any provision, if you do, you can avail me, of any provision in the Nigerian Constitution that says you cannot suspend a senator.
Senator Gresham noted that you gave Senator Ningi a get-out-of-jail-free card, that if he were to apologize, issue a letter of apology to the Senate, that he could be called back So would he, if he does that, say, within this week, will he be called back immediately?
Well, it's part of the parliamentary procedure that if people complain about your actions and they describe it or determine it as a misconduct, and you say, hey, and I said it before, my friends, my colleagues, what I said was within the context of what I knew. But now I know better with what has been presented. I'm sorry if I have offended your sensibility. If he had done that, even if he does it today, if I am the presiding officer, I will forgive him.
Distinguished, I just wanted to quickly highlight, because we also have had to speak with people who analyze the budget on a yearly basis. And for them, they've noted that most times, before now, there used to be a provision for constituency projects, but it does appear now that that provision has been taken away and it's now a free-for-all. They think that process, has the capacity to make nonsense of the entire budget, where you have almost 2 trillion naira being, assigned or allocated to members of the National Assembly for constituency project, which is a huge sum, a significant sum. Do you think that the Senate, not just the Senate now, the National Assembly might take a second look at the implementation of some of the constituency projects and where they are inserted in the budget? Because they think that it might make the budget less efficient in terms of how it is being implemented.
Well, there is no doubt that there have been some complaints from some commentators and some persons, even some constituents, that constituency projects were not being executed efficiently and effectively. There have been allusions that some lawmakers collude with contractors, with agencies, to share the money allocated for constituency projects. And some of us have called for proper and thorough investigation of agencies of government responsible for that aspect, like the EFCC and the ICPC, which they have been doing. And so, but you cannot place that on everybody. The essence of constituency project is because we are from a diverse community, society. You have problems that are unique to you. I have problems that are unique to me. My constituents expect that I should do certain things for them, attract projects to them and the rest of them. And therefore, to cushion the effect of the barrage of pressure on lawmakers, let's allocate funds for such specific and unique projects. So it is a noble idea as far as I'm concerned, but if it is abused, then certainly there is for passion and the need to adjust ourselves as the events unfold.
All right, as we wind down on this in a minute, Senator, having the court looked at the rules and still said the reverse suspension of those 3 senators in question, has the Senate amended or looked at their rules again ever since those 3 cases have? Because if this goes to court, the same thing may likely happen.
The rules of the Senate are a live instrument. They are subject to review, subject to adjustment, subject to amendment.
But nothing has been done ever since those 3 cases.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, we amend rules given circumstances in which we find ourselves. For instance, on assumption of office, we discovered that there were some conflicts arising from the contest for the Senate presidency. And because we found some level of lacuna in our rule, and I said, look, the definition of ranking in our rule looks a little ambiguous, and therefore, let's amend it and make it straight here. Ranking this way, you can contest. Ranking this way, you cannot contest, and the rest of them. And so, I am sure that the legal department of the National Assembly definitely would have looked at the rulings that you are talking about now, and if there was need for amendment, quite frankly, the Senate is open to amendment to plug any loopholes in the process of legislative actions.
Well, Senator Akeredolu has since resigned his position as the head of the Northern Senators Forum. So that notice, Abdul Ningi. So that notice, they circulate all over the place. So I guess we'll wait and see what happens thereafter, even though Senator thinks for now, who knows if the matter is died, if we heard the last of this matter. But as they say in politics, you never know. Yeah. Senator Abba Moro, Minority Leader, thank you for your time today.
Thank you very much, and I appreciate your contribution to the building of a Nigeria of our dream.
Thank you. All right, business news is up next on the hour.
Oh, that's right, Chamberlain. We cannot say this is the end of the matter because this is not the first time we're discussing budget padding in the country. We thought it was over, but obviously not, even with the promise of President Bola Tinubu that there'll be nothing like padding. We are still holding this conversation and obviously still an ongoing one. But let's do business now. Good morning. Welcome to Business Morning on Sunrise Daily. And we start from the global space as usual. We tell you that oil prices rose on Wednesday on expectations of strong global demand, including in the world's top consumer, that's the United States, and even somewhat sticky inflation. Inflation was out yesterday from the United States, and even though it was up, they say it is still within the expectations. But let's look at the numbers right there for this morning. Still struggling to head back to $83 that Brent was on last week. We see it at $82.38 a barrel after gaining 0.6%. Same addition to the WTI of the United States, but we see that has gone up to $78.03 a barrel. Now, when we look at what is contributing to this, U.S. inventories and fuel inventories fell last week. So that's one contributor to that. That's according to the American Petroleum Institute. Analysts still believe that the Federal Reserve may start cutting rates in summer despite that inflation number that came out yesterday, which was higher, led by cost of gasoline, shelter, suggesting some stickiness in inflation. Lower rates obviously support oil demand. So they're still looking at June for the beginning of that cut in the United States, but I mean, time will tell. Oil prices are also under pressure in the previous session after the U.S. Energy Information Administration raised domestic oil output forecasts, but declines were limited on expectations of OPEC Plus cuts, which they have extended. Slow global oil growth, and you know that China also contributes to that. And on the recent wave of drone attacks in Russia, including refineries. We hear Ukraine say they are now in Russia doing their own attacks. So this, at the end of the day, affects other countries around the world. These are two major contributors to commodities globally. Talking about commodities now, grains, Chicago soybean futures edged lower on Wednesday, although they were hovered near 1 month highs after Brazil's crop agency cut production forecast for the country, testing speculative investors who were bet heavily on further price drops. Let's look at the numbers right there. Soybeans, we see there 0.2% down at $11.93 for 3/4 of a bushel. That's for soybeans. And then it hit $11.97 yesterday. That was the highest since February the 13th. Then look at corn right there. Corn remained unchanged. Not enough force to move it for now. $4.41 for 3/4 of a bushel. And that's after it climbed to its strongest on February the 6th. It was $4.45. That was the highest since February the 6th. Then both crops are down this year, fell to their lowest since 2020, last month. Let's look at wheat. Wheat gained 0.5% to $5.50 a bushel. That's not far from Monday's low of $5.24. Now, crop agency CONAP lowered projections for Brazil's soybean production by 2.6 million tons to 146.85 million tons. In other crops, Ukraine's 2024 combined grain and oilseed harvest could shrink to 76.1 million metric tons from 82.6 million metric tons last year and 107 tons before Russia invaded. To Nigeria now and see what's happening back home in Nigeria another time. I think it's the 7th time this year the central bank has raised the exchange rate for calculating customs duties by 1.9%. So it went from 1,593 naira 88 kobo for $1 to 1,624 naira 73 kobo. Remember that the CBN had said that whatever rate is on the Form M is what will be used all through a certain transaction, but we still see this movement. Well, the decision is effective 12th, that was yesterday, March the 12th, and follows the continued drop in the value of the naira. Also, the 1.9% hike represents an additional cost of over 30 naira on each dollar needed to clear goods. 30 naira added to each good you want to clear compared to the previous rate. Meanwhile, some port users have expressed discontent with the CBN new policy of linking import duty payments to the exchange rate on Form M submission, as this, they say, will introduce more hurdles in an already challenging trade environment. We're going to come back to this in a moment to see some of the implications of this and see if there are better ways to handle this issue with the drop in the value of naira. Meanwhile, the president of the African Development Bank, Dr. Akeredolu Adesina, is calling for an end to loans tied to Africa's vast reserves of oil and critical minerals, often used for the production of smartphones and electric vehicles. Dr. Adesina, who made this known during an interview with Associated Press, warns that these deals exploit African nations and hinder proper valuation of their resources. At least 11 African nations have taken such loans since the 2000s, mainly from China and Western firms like Glencore and Standard Chartered. To combat these challenges, Dr. Adesina emphasizes the need for renegotiation and transparent, equitable agreements and fair benefits to safeguard Africa's economic interests. It also proposes AFDB's Alliance for Green Infrastructure, which aims to secure $10 billion for sustainable projects on the continent. Well, this is not the first time Dr. Adesina is bringing this up, and we know that even here in Nigeria, some of the crude we have underground have already been used for one loan or the other. So I guess, as Dr. Adesina suggested, if there could be a renegotiation, but you must have something to bring to the table for you to have the strength to renegotiate. So Africans will have to look inwards. I tell you, a whole lot of areas that we will have to. Now, let's go back to that FX rate issue with customs and beyond. And we'll be discussing that this morning with the founder and chief executive officer of Nairametrics, Mr. Ugodre Obichukwu. He joins us virtually from Lagos. Mr. Ugodre, I think that's what everybody knows you as. It's so easy to just call you Ugodre. Good morning. Good to have you on the program. So this is like the 7th time, I believe. I mean, Nairametrics, you guys follow the news, so you may correct me, that we're having this, even after the issue about the Form M, which is to be used for transactions and all of that. It seems we're not able to get a steady rate in the customs area for the imports of goods.
Thank you so much for having me. It's always a pleasure to be here. Yes, let's all remember that we are now operating essentially managed float, as they officially like to call it, even though we think it's almost a free float that we're operating. So what then that means is that you're going to have this consistent move of the exchange rate for government agencies like customs, who tend to charge their own fees or their own revenues in dollars, even though you get to pay in naira. And so, but the impact of this is this has a feed immediately into inflation rate, because a lot of the goods that we import today, a lot of the things that we consume today in Nigeria are imported. You did also see data from the National Bureau of Statistics last Friday, stating that we spent about 35.9 trillion on importation last year, and a lot of that import was towards the end of the year. And that just, we still managed to get a very slim trade surplus. But remember, that was at the exchange rate of about 900 and something naira, which was the closing rate at the time, or the average rate at that time. Now we're at 1.6. So expect that our import bill is even likely going to be higher than it currently is. So, a lot of people have criticized the customs for doing this, or the government for doing this, but let's let's bear in mind that this is also a government that is looking for revenue, and customs is one of the major departments or ministries of the agencies of the government that provides major revenue for them. And so the conventional thinking now is, how do we approach this? Are you going to keep changing, the exchange rate on a regular basis, or are you just going to adopt maybe a flat exchange rate? It's unclear how, this policy or how we're going to address this issue, because what it then means is that people who import would find it difficult to also plan. They find it difficult to also project, because nobody knows what the exchange rate will be a month from now. So if you're importing goods and you don't know if the exchange rate is going to weaken or if it's going to strengthen, then not really sure how to price your goods. But to the government, look, all they are doing is that exchange rate is not fictitious. They're not getting it out of the air. They're probably looking at the average exchange rate that you have over a period of time, and then they use that as their own conversion rate. So all the implications all around. But the good thing is that we have some exchange rate stability to an extent over the last 2 weeks. We've seen exchange rate hover around 1,600 naira to the dollar. What is also interesting is that the disparity between the official market and the parallel market has also slimmed. I think it's about 0.2 or 0.3% when we check. Probably the lowest we've seen in a long time. In fact, the last time we saw something like this was in 2018, 2019. So that provides a little bit of comfort, even though 1.6 is still pretty high for a lot of people. But at least we're not seeing a lot of the upswings that we saw in February.
Yeah, well, I think one thing we've achieved is that closing of the gap to a large extent between the black market and the official market. But what do you think will happen? Since the CBN has said we're running a willing buyer, willing seller market now, what will happen if they allow that to rule with the customs rate?
So I think that the reason why it's a challenge now, it's because the perception is that the exchange rate is weakening. So it's not like it's strengthening. If it was strengthening, I don't think anybody would complain. So it's because it is weakening. And if you listen closely to the CBN's policies and their strategy, they are saying, look, let us try and sort out price discovery. Let's, as much as possible, make sure there's transparency in how the exchange rate is determined. You don't want speculators determining exchange rate. You don't want foreign agents, in quotes, determining exchange rate. You want the exchange rate to be determined fairly by the market. So once you're able to achieve that, then you can now start to work on other levers or, official levers that you know typically affects exchange rate. And so the next step that you've seen is now increasing the interest rate. And so you've seen MPR go to 22.75. You've seen Omo bills go to 21.05, which actually is the highest we've also seen on record. You've also seen treasury bills go up as well to almost 20%. And all that is geared towards trying to attract foreign investor inflow. By the way, we call that hot money inflows because that is foreign portfolio investors inflow. So the thinking is that if you're able to attract foreign investor inflow, albeit for a short period, 6 months to 1 year, then that can provide enough liquidity to achieve exchange rate stability. And that can also be the right buffer to have a lot more foreign investors start to come back into Nigeria. According to the CBN, they claim we had $1 billion or so in February in terms of FX inflows. And no surprises, a lot of that inflow went into purchasing government risk-free securities. Because, that interest rate is mouth-watering. And so their thinking is if they can try and solve that part of the problem, then you can start to see liquidity come back. And then perhaps you will start to see exchange rate strengthen. I read a report as well, which we also covered at Nairametrics. I think it was a Goldman Sachs or so report that suggests that exchange rate could fall to 1.2 in a year. But a lot of this prognosis all depends on supply. That demand is not going anywhere. We're likely going to keep importing for a while. In fact, our import bills would likely expand. Oil export is no longer, that doesn't provide that sort of buffer that it used to provide for us several years ago. We're not producing at the sort of rates that we should be producing. So all in all, what we do need is foreign investor inflow, and that comes at a huge cost. So the hope is that, as much as that, and I use that hope quite gently, is if you continue to attract foreign investor inflow in the short to medium term, then the fiscal side probably will have enough time to try and fix a lot of fiscal bottlenecks that we have, because you cannot, and I've said that several times, you cannot have exchange rate stability if you're running the kind of fiscal deficit that we're currently running in the country.
Yeah, and the bottom line is, if we want a permanent solution, as you noted, we have to take care of our supply. And if we keep depending on the hot money, I don't know, that's kind of risky, because I think we remember what happened a couple of years ago when, especially the NGX felt it, the foreign portfolio, the hot money just went hot, and fizzled out. I wonder what's going on with our non-oil sector. The agriculture sector, for instance, I mean, we can't even feed ourselves at this time. We're a threat of food insecurity everywhere, not to mention exporting, so that we can also boost this. I mean, these are real investment that can sustain the supply into the country.
Exactly. You hit the nail on the head. So we are predominantly a mono-export economy, and it's been like that. So several governments, whether it's the Jonathan government or the Buhari government, they've tried their best to diversify our export potentials, but it really isn't working. And not the fault of manufacturers, because they have tried their best to try and create a semblance of competitive export market. But there are a lot of challenges on the fiscal front. Even the central bank, the past one, as much as a lot of us try to malign them, also have tried. They've created all sorts of incentives to drive non-oil exports. But if you speak to exporters, they tell you clearly that it's probably a lot easier, right, to import things into Nigeria than export. That is just so difficult. And so they can't just compete. And then you are now trying to face an export market that is hugely competitive. I was reading something earlier today, I think it was the CEO of AFDB or so, that was saying that, as former Agri Minister Additional, was saying that we've basically just lost out on the agri export market, because over the years, we've sunk in a whole lot of money into the agri sector to make us self-sufficient, and such that we can even have enough to export. But that also is not happening, and that also speaks to some of the challenges that we have in Nigeria. So it's one thing for us to try and solve this exchange rate problem or the economic crisis that we face from a monetary perspective. There's a huge role to play from the fiscal side, and that is where the coordinating Minister of Economy comes in. So all we hear is just sound bites and sound bites. You don't hear anything concrete. It doesn't seem like there's any solid plan, such as what the central bank has. Even if you don't agree with the plan that the central bank has, at least they have a plan and they are implementing it. But what plan have you seen from the fiscal side? I haven't seen anything concrete, so it's just all over the place. So you need that side to really do the coordination job that they said they want to do, so that everything comes together and we have a holistic picture of where we think this economy is going. Trust me, no matter what the monetary policy side does, it can only last for a period. They can't continue to pay 21% in high interest just so that you can suck out money supply and attract foreign investors. If you don't fix the fiscal issues that we have, we're all going to come back here again, because the demand for FX is not waning anytime soon. And so that's the challenge that we have. Like I've always said, Nigeria does $90 to $100 billion in FX annually. That is the sort of demand that we have. And a lot of that money comes from foreign investors, some come from crude oil exports, some come from remittances. So we're seeing remittances pick up, we're seeing foreign investor inflows pick up. But what about crude oil exports? Are we going to remain at $30 to $40 billion annually? Is that enough to give us the sort of exchange rate parity? For gone are the days when oil needs to get exports from other areas of the economy, and you can't do that if you don't have a government that's serious.
Wow, food for thought there. Thank you so much, Mr. Ugodre Ubichiku, CEO and founder of Nairametrics.
Thank you.
All right, talking about the Naira, let's head to the market now. Yesterday, a bit of good news on the NAFEX platform. We saw that the Naira strengthened, gained 8 Naira 78 kobo to close at 1,603 Naira 97 kobo. So not very much right there because we're still around the 1,600 Naira area. But at least it was a gain yesterday, 8 Naira. More than 8 Naira right there. Let's go to the NGX. We saw it's a continuous bullish sentiment right there. The market gained 1.47% and brought us back to the 103,524.44 trillion. And then we see the equities cap also gained a lot of money, went into the portfolio of investors at the close of trade yesterday. 836 billion Naira is a lot. As we see that it jumped back to 58. We're heading to 60, so hold your breath. We'll get there to 58.53 trillion Naira for the equities cap, the market value of the NGX as at the close of trade yesterday. Looking at the activity chart for yesterday, it was a lot of positive, or just value was down more than 16%, but we see deals went up 11,000. Been a while since we saw that much deals in the NGX. Volume also gained almost 30% at the close of trade. The sectors that did that yesterday, of course, trustifugas, they're always the first picking for profit taking, for cherry picking. It's the banking. Banking gained yesterday more than 5%. Consumer goods and industrial almost unchanged. Insurance is coming back up, even though it's too soon to say. It takes a while for insurance to really regain some of the losses it had last week, but gained 1.18%. Oil and gas also managed to come up yesterday, 0.12%. Top trade still leading. Transcorp Power still doing its thing since it was listed. I bet investors who were able to jump in have been smiling on how much they have gained on their stocks. Accessco also was a top trade stock yesterday, as well as GTCO. So that's why you see the banking sector was up for the fugas right there. The unlisted market will jump right there now and see a negative trade again. It's been consistent at the NESD. It was down 0.13% for the NESD at 1,080.35. Market cap is still around 1 trillion Naira, 1.46 trillion Naira at the close of trade. The activity had a lot of green also. Volume went up. Value was down, very down at 68.75%. Deals went up and stocks traded also 7.4 compared to the day before. It was about 75% up. Then we go to the fixed income market yesterday. We have an auction today, which we expect. But let's look at the trade there yesterday. We know this is where Mr. Godre was talking about, you know, the federal government raising the rates to attract investors, especially foreign investors. So you see, yesterday we had 23 deals valued at 21.43, and we had a lot of activity around March 25th security for yesterday right there. That's for the NTB, becoming very popular. This is where the foreign investors like to look, because a lot of them are short term, and like he said, it's hot money, so they don't have a lot of patience. They just want to come in a couple of months, max a year, if at all, they get their money and get out. And then for the federal government bonds, yesterday we had 20 deals valued at 48.8 trillion Naira right there. And we see the June 2038 security was the most attractive. So we have an auction coming today. We also had OMO yesterday. OMO had only one deal. CSB had only one deal, also valued at 1 billion Naira. But let's talk to Demola Oshitoki now from Access Bank to give us some expectations. Demola, hi. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, good to have you. So we have an auction coming on today. What are some of the details of that auction, and what's our expectation?
So there's an NTB auction that's taking place today where 161 billion will be offered by the DMO. And the expectation is we expect to see these elevated rates. You know, if we compare it to the last NTB auction, we saw rates close at about 21.50%. So it was quite interesting that we saw these close quite similarly to the auction within the previous week, which closed at about around the same level, 21.50%. So within this auction, it's only 161 billion. What we're expecting is we're expecting the DMO to continue the trend of providing an additional allocation. And, the drive for that is in the drive to continue to keep these rates elevated. We know that at the last NTB auction, FPI involvement was at about 75%. So we know that they're using this as a good measure in terms of bringing in some of those FPI inflows to help to provide some short-term stability for the NAFEX. So the expectation for today is we expect an additional allocation to be provided, and we're expecting to see similar rates. So this should probably hopefully close around those 20% levels, so which should be a good return in terms of yields for a lot of players within that space.
Yeah, so Demola, can you give us more details, like how many units of sale, what are the prices, the maximum, the minimum, and all of that? Could you please share that, at least for our viewers?
Yeah, so for today, it's 161 billion, essentially, which is going to be on offer across the standard maturity. So for the 91, the 182-day, and the 364-day, essentially, what we're expecting is, a similar trend. What we've seen within the previous auction is they tend to oversell across, especially the longer end, which is the 364 days. So expecting that today, that similar trend will persist, where we'll see some additional allocation made, especially at that long end, to the 182 as well as 364-day today.
And do we still see the foreign investors interested in the short-term securities?
So yes, largely we're seeing them that interest as well, because we know that at the last NTB auction, at the short end, it was about 17.24%, which is a good return in terms of investments. The 182 was about 18%, and the 364, as I mentioned, was about 21.50%. So a good return essentially for investors. So expecting them to play within this space. As you mentioned, they like that hot money. So essentially they're going to look to play within that space. So, we should expect our FX numbers to be elevated within this week.
Yeah, but I guess we shouldn't get too relaxed. This is hot money, can come and go at any time, yeah.
I 110% agree with you. The true thing we want to see is we want to see that proper handshake between the monetary policy as well as the fiscal side. So we can see that the CBN governor has been very proactive and consistent in his approach of keeping these rates elevated. So long term, what we'd want to see is a proper alignment between the fiscal side as well as the monetary side to ensure that we have that stability. So essentially, we're not just counting on hot money, because as you mentioned, the thing with hot money is it can come and it can go, so we want to have more stability, because especially within the NAFEX, we don't want to see further depreciation. We know that quite recently there was a circular that came out rather from Goldman that said, we're looking to end at about 1,200 at the close of the year, and the hope is that, if we continue with this drive, the DMO CBN have been proactive in terms of keeping rates, elevated, which is good in terms of providing, short-term stability, but long term, what we want to see, from the fiscal side is helping to, provide decisions as well as initiatives that will help to provide a lot more stability. So a lot of these inflows can be, a lot more consistent. So it's not just on one-offs, and we're not just depending on short-term flows.
And I wonder how long the federal government can keep the elevated yields, because it's costing them more, even though not as much as Eurobond.
No, I agree with you 110%, but I think, it's a case of, at the moment, it's a case of providing, that stability, so we need to, you kind of almost using a poor analogy of you crawl before you walk, so essentially, let's start getting those flows in. And as those flows are coming in, that's going to provide a certain level of stability for the economy. And as that is going on, that would provide, some time to, provide a lot more long-term, initiatives that would help to provide more stability and also make Nigeria, a viable place for investment, which is long-term what we want to get to.
Yeah, obviously. Thank you so much, Demola, for your time, and have a great marketing day.
Thank you for having me. Yeah.
All right, so that's where we'll draw the curtains back now to Sunrise Daily Studios.
yes, indeed. Just ahead of that conversation, which continues about ensuring that schools are secure. So the question about state or multi-level policing comes to the fore again. And we do know that the governor of Kaduna State is one huge proponent of that. And so in light of what's going on there, perhaps he might just keep thinking at some point, this is part of the reasons why they think that we should decentralize policing. We'll have a conversation about that as we progress, but let's take you back to that incident that occurred in Wuse. We do know that FEMA, several agencies also going there to look through how that happened. We know we also did bring you earlier statement from the police, how they are ensuring that it doesn't get out of hand, but at the moment, as you may also have a look there, that is the incident that occurred, and that's when those agencies were there to see how they can do to quench the fire. The police also, remember, they did tell us that they have the man in custody who shot at the fleeing person there.
Yeah, what we still do not have, excuse me, is the status of the person who was shot. There seems to be some silence on, that status. Did he die? Was he in a critical condition? The person who aimed the shot, did he get his target? What is the status of the person who was shot at? That's Ibrahim, what's his name now? Yeah, the 27-year-old man who we understand was allegedly convicted by a mobile court yesterday in Wuse. But it's also good to note that at least the fire service was on hand to handle the situation, and we didn't have a situation of no water, etc. Because in recent times, there have been questions as to, general administration within the FCT when it comes to matters of traffic, etc., etc. But we will be getting very soon, hopefully, as you said today, the Minister of the FCT will be appearing before the Senate, and I'm sure that maybe this might be some of the questions that will be coming up. But very soon, in no time, we'll be going into the conversation we have on the Safe Schools Initiative and what the federal government intends to do to ensure that many more states are not subjected or are not vulnerable to attacks that are now being perpetrated by bandits and terrorists across many parts of northern Nigeria. Chamberlain.
Oh, yes, indeed. That is part of what we'll consider. But we'll be back in just a moment and take you through what is the federal government doing to ensure that schools are a lot safer. Because this morning we also did see that some bandits in Sokoto, they are demanding about 20 million naira ransom for kidnapped Sangaya school children. That's information just filtering through. But just give us a moment. We will be back to talk about this and more.
It is 6 days since no fewer than 287 school children were abducted by bandits at Kuriga community in Chukun local government area of Kaduna State. The attack has been generating reactions and has also raised concerns about the government's Safe School initiative. The Inspector General of Police, Kayode Egbetokun, arrives Kaduna State to meet Governor Uba Sani over the unfortunate incident. He is accompanied by some senior police officers. The IGP assures the governor that the police leadership is working with other security agencies to ensure the safe return of the children.
Your Excellency, I want to assure you that the police leadership and indeed the leadership of all security agencies in Nigeria are as concerned as you are over the safety of these children. And we are going to do everything possible with you to ensure that they return safely.
The police boss also outlined some of the strategies for the rescue of the victims and forestalling a future occurrence.
I have instructed the AIG PMF to immediately deploy a unit of PMF to that community, if only to give confidence to the people. The men will be deployed, and with the support that you have pledged to give, I'm sure that the community will start to feel safe again. We are launching the Special Intervention Squad for Kaduna State.
Governor Sani thanks the security agencies for their intervention, promising to give them all the support to ensure the rescue of the abducted students.
We are extremely confident that the school children, by the grace of God, will return back home safely. And of course, we will do everything to ensure that we work closely with the relevant security agencies in Nigeria to ensure that our children are back home safely. And I'm also happy with the decision by the Inspection of Police to quickly deploy mobile base in our Kuriga community.
The Minister of State for Education, Dr. Yusuf Tanko, also visited Governor Sani over the school attack, accompanied by some senior officials of the ministry.
It's our belief that what we have right now, the over 20 million out of school children, which Mr. President prioritized in the 8-point agenda to get them back to school, the attack on school is a major setback.
Lately, there has been a resurgence of school attacks by bandits, primarily targeting children in the northwest and northeast regions. This underscores the imperative for security agencies to reassess their operational strategies and devise more effective measures to combat the scourge of banditry and kidnapping in the area.
All right, welcome back. So we've got Dr. Yusuf Sununu here with us. He is the Minister of State for Education. Good morning and thank you for coming on today.
Thank you for having me.
We did see you in that report and in Kaduna schools on that attack. So definitely lots of people will have questions. There'll be concerns. So yes, we heard a bit of what you said there, but if you could just elaborate a little bit, what is the government doing now? What can you tell those who think they're not exactly sure if government has a grip on this, because people will be discouraged to keep sending their awards to schools if they keep seeing things like this?
Well, thank you very much for inviting me and having me this morning. First of all, let me start by saying that what happened is rather unfortunate and has a lot of capability to cause damage to education. Generally, attack, not only to education, is something serious. But one attack is to education is attacking the base, because education is what you can use to develop your country, is what you can use to find your rightful place in the global arena, and it's also what you can do to improve it has direct relationship with lifelong activity of an individual. That's why, as of today, learning is so inclusive, starting from the base to when somebody has come to the end of his life. So it's a continuous process. And when you see there is an attack in that moment, it also becomes so serious now that you also have a government in place that is committed towards making education better for all. Mr. President came up with a declaration of trying to improve the funding of education, to also improve the safety in school, and also to, most importantly, which we describe as a time bomb, the out-of-school children to be moved back to school so that this country will remain to participate in the global arena, so that we can have the individual that will be able to participate actively in the global and local affairs. But today, we wake up all of a sudden and then there was a massive kidnapping of school students. That is really very unfortunate. And the government has to address 3 to 4 major issues. One, about the children that were kidnapped. 2, about improving the psychology and stability of the parents that were involved, and also even the governor himself, and even Mr. President too, because anybody who is ruling on such number of innocent life, some even below the age of 9 being kidnapped and taken into kidnappers then with this higher heat And everybody, you know, those who are in position will also be psychologically affected.
Have we?
So we have to do that. We also have to ensure that even the infrastructure too, where are we and how do we protect it? And this is also the summary of what is known as the Safe School Initiative.
Okay, I was going to go there. What's happening to that? People think the government has jettisoned it.
We haven't jettisoned the Safe School Declaration, and even this year we have celebrated Safe School Day, protection of our institution from an attack on most especially education, the three components of education, the student infrastructure, and also the continuous surveillance of the environment. So the Safe School Initiative, we are working, and it's still in place. It has a committee even in Nigeria to ensure the execution following the Nigeria's signing into declaration. And we have, it is a multi-agency committee that involves both security, the finance, and education. The essence of that, security will now provide the surveillance and necessary response when needed. For the education on our own part, we are always in touch with schools so that they can detect early subtle signs and they can give us, and we communicate that to community and listen. And then the finance aspect that is there is also to ensure that there is adequate funding of the committee so that it can perform well. But I think what we are going to do and what we are looking at now is the possibility of ranging from, in terms of our tracking and surveillance, we have to now move towards using technology. So as this also in this fact that the ministry also just recently we have an interministerial meeting with the Ministry of Digital Economy and then even Ministry of Science and Technology to see how we can deploy science and technology towards surveillance and also protecting our school. We thought that by doing that, we'll get it right. But unfortunately, as we are working, the bandits also are not sleeping. They are also and most of this information, unlike conventional war that you know, this banditry attack is something that is new to this. People will say 10 years from 2011 to now is a good time to have an experience. But you see, it's just like what we do in medicine, we call when you are using antibiotics. Why do antibiotics develop resistance to drug? It's because as you are changing, they are also reacting on their own mind, producing something that will protect them. So it's like the ongoing, we are working, they are working. But you see, the issue is that's why we have to come to conclusion that what way we can only go ahead of them is to see how we can deploy technology and science into it. And by doing that, we ensure that this is. So I was in Kaduna yesterday. The IG of police was also in Kaduna. Vice President also went there. These are all efforts to ensure that I think this is also one of the first time that I see, because I know my state was also a victim. Federal Government College, Beniawuri was attacked, and we have recovered, all the students were gained their freedom. But I think the concerted effort now to the extent of Mr. President coming out to give a directives to the security agents to ensure that those kidnapped children are released in the shortest possible time.
But that's a challenge, because many think that nothing has significantly changed with respect to the security architecture. So many ungoverned spaces. So
you see, I'm not a security personnel or security expert, but I want to believe that definitely a security issue is not something that we can now come and discuss publicly. As I told you, I mentioned the issue of antibiotics. Scientists are doing their own in their own laboratory. The organisms are also doing on their own where they are. So if you come out to mention what you are doing or the effort you are doing.
No, we're not asking them to mention. For instance, everybody can see. What about the response time for distress calls? Have you seen any improvement whatsoever across the country?
Well, I said the response time, I can say there's some improvement.
How?
But we are not where we are.
Which improvement? What's example?
Unlike before. You see, I told you that if you Google now, you've seen I've raised more than 20 motions on security attack in my constituency as a member of House of Rep. Now, I think I had the cost to address World Press Conference that over 300 journalists in the National Assembly when the Federal Government College, Benin Awuri, were kidnapped. And I quite agree that what the kind of enthusiasm to see that those children kidnapped now are released wasn't there at that time. I'm sure of that. I'm a member of House of Representatives, and you can Google, you see all the motions that have been made on security situation. But you see, the issue is, it's not that the government is not doing anything, or the government is not concerned. I mentioned you, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is a father. not only to the children, but to the country. And I said that you cannot be in a place of leadership. You are having this kind of this, and people say you are not worried. You understand? But you see, why you are also doing at that, why you are also worried, you have to also look at the collateral damage of over 300 innocent souls. You understand? So all other measures must be put in place to see how we can get this in. But then this also should now give us, and that's why I said now we are even looking at, we queried ourselves, well, we are saying, what happened to our surveillance? What happened to our
intelligence?
I mentioned that. And I mentioned that. I said the only solution that we can have now is to see how we can digitalize our surveillance and tracking mechanism. You understand?
I'm glad that, there are questions being asked, because really and honestly, any citizen that is aware and is intelligent enough, these are the questions that they will ask. These are the questions that they're asking over and over again.
Yes, and I said, I've mentioned that before you asked me, that we have detected that what we needed now is deployment of technology to monitor the activities of the bandit. So that rather than waiting that they are around this place, they are around this place. We all know what is needed to have general mapping. Even at that, and once you have general mapping, you can now be able to follow them with your drone or whatever you can use on security basis. And that's why even I mentioned in Kaduna that we are going to reposition the activities of the Rapid Response Committee under the very Ministry of Finance, so that we can work in harmony to ensure that now what we have is more effective. Rather than we only come to say that this, what do we do now? They are kidnapping.
What do you mean by rapid response? You said rapid response. Yes,
that's a Ministry of Finance that we have under the as a safe security under the Safe School Initiative. And the essence of that committee is one, surveillance, to detect early subtle sign before attack happen, so that we can also prepare for the rapid response when it happens. We also make preparation if there is need for evacuation to quickly evacuate them. And then last, to ensure that where we have evacuated those children to where we are keeping them, the education continues.
Since the Safe Schools Initiative thing was signed and even proposed, I think shortly after the Chibok girls thing happened, I remember that then Prime Minister Gordon Brown from the United Kingdom came, and that's when the Safe Schools Initiative thing was they came up with it.
Yes.
Can we cite any example where it, as a result of having the Safe Schools Initiative, students in a particular school were saved from being kidnapped?
And you cannot say that since the Safe Initiative, even if you have never have a time that the attack was averted, no.
Now, I'm just asking if we have examples of that. Because sadly, what we have had examples of are many more attacks of schools.
Okay, if you go to some students from the University of Federal University of Gusau and Federal University of Soma were attacked. But I told you that so many attacks were foiled, were stopped, were abated by the same activity of the...
Was it as a result of Safe Schools Initiative?
Exactly, because we have a team all over. It's because of this thing.
So would you say that the Safe Schools Initiative is overwhelmed? Because the idea behind it is to prevent this type of attack from happening again.
When you say overwhelmed, how many schools do you have? How many, what we call soft target do we have in Nigeria? So many. And that's why we said, because of the human capacity is limited, there is need to deploy technology, which will now give you, in technology, you can make your surveillance. In technology, you can make attack. You make assessment, and then you can attack when there is risk, when you know that there is minimal or no collateral damage.
Okay, Honorable Minister, because I'm just wondering, when we heard that over 200 children, I don't know whether we have a definitive figure of how many children were actually kidnapped. Do we know how many? And how many people are we looking at in total?
We're looking at about 280.
280. It's still about. Is it a more concrete figure?
No, you see, when you say about, in a situation like that, you cannot give correct figure. For example, some may not be with kidnappers. Some may be missing because of the fear, and they are yet to be traced. But security are working, and even the parents are working. You understand? So getting exact figure may be very, very difficult. You understand? Along the line, even when journalists were interviewing one of the teachers, he ran away when he around the bush. You understand? He got escaped. I mean, he said that many people got escaped. Sometimes you escape. If you escape, you miss even your way. You cannot get back to your distance.
Okay, so we're still hoping that some people have escaped and maybe they're on their way back. Okay, so let's go with
that happened this thing, even in where is it, Gusau? when the students were kidnapped, a lot escaped. The figure has to be changed after a week.
Okay, so let's go with your figure of 280. I mean, that's what we still have now. Then let's go with that. I'm just wondering, you know, it would have taken a lot for 280 students to have been kidnapped. They would have been hauled into a lot of vehicles. So there have been questions as to, are we saying nobody saw this number of people coming to that school? Are we saying that when they were leaving, nobody saw them? So there'll be big questions as to the response time for when people saw those kinds of things, and even calling the security agencies.
And I told you that's why.
Because shortly after, Honorable Minister, shortly after that attack happened, we saw a lot of security vehicles arriving at the premises of the school. So big questions were, where were those security trucks? You see, when that attack was going on, or shortly after that attack happened, how come they were unable to foil them?
You see, this question that you're asking are directly security-related questions. You understand?
But also,
our committee, we have called for an emergency meeting to address these questions with security members in our community, in the committee. That look, these are our questions. How and what happened? You understand? You see, I've been to this studio several times on the issue, this thing. You have interviewed me severally on issue of kidnapping in my this thing. So the issue is that there are, what we needed much now is inter-security agency collaboration. We cannot do away with that. There must be an inter-agency collaboration, and most important, that it will lead to be sharing of information between security agencies, and taking any subtle information from an abroad villager to be sincere.
Is that what is missing?
It's some of probably that's sort of is missing, because I'm not a security expert and I don't want to dwell in that too much. But you see, when things happen and you know that there are multiple people that have a lot of responsibility, you now think, okay, you have to come together because you have the community. What happened? Who first noticed the information? When you have the information, did you share it with their counterpart in SSS? Did you share it with the civil defense? Did you share it with the police? Even the vigilante that is employed in some city can provide information. But the issue is not information. How do we sit down, synthesize the information, and get a result?
Ayo.
Well, thank you, Mark. Honorable Minister, just one or two things to raise with you. We have been told several times that the first line of defense in our economy, in our nation, is the local government system. And they have some measure of responsibility in the area of education as well. And the federal government cannot come and govern the local government. So is there a role that the states themselves evaded, or a gap that was left at the state level, such that the local government security apparatus couldn't foresaw some of these issues, in your opinion?
You see, I quite agree with you. Education is in the concurrent list, and therefore both local government, state and federal government has its own share. And even if you look at the number of state, secondary and basic schools that we have right now, federal government have only 112. So a majority, more than almost 98%, belongs to the state and local government. You understand? So they have a larger share. And that's why since we came in our own program within the ministry, we initiated from top, we have a top to bottom approach. We carry them all over and we work together. But you see, the issue of security is something else. That I agree that even the local government, they have their own security. The chairman is the chief security officer of his local government, and the governor is the chief security officer of the state. And I cannot say that things are not done at this end. Let me tell you one thing. To ensure that the state are doing much, look at Kaduna State. And I think it's only Kaduna State for now that I can say I know of a very vibrant commissioner of security, who is also, I think, he happened to be a journalist before now, something Aruan. That is always all over. If he is talking, you think that you are talking to a security expert. Because of the experience he's garnered at that time as a spokesperson of the Kaduna State government, that warranted his elevation to state of commissioner on security. And this is the man that is also doing so much. So Kaduna State is not a state that you can say that it's not doing much, because not only in terms of school attack, Kaduna State is an area that has been so much insurgency attack. Look at the Bindingwari to Kontagora.
The question, your Honorable Minister, the question is why do we still have these issues when they have that kind of responsibility? Are they vulnerable? Does the federal government have to come up all the time whenever there is anything, any security breach at schools in the states?
The federal government has to come in because there are some areas that are direct mandate of the state, of the federal government. For example, the mobilization of security at level of military is not within the ambit of the state. Even though the state are we
then saying that the police is inefficient? Just a second, Senator. Are we then saying that
the police?
Go ahead.
Police are not inefficient. They are not inefficient. But you see, there is what we call, even in medicine, what we call radical approach. Once something becomes persistent and is a serious threat to life, you now forget that this man's responsibility. What you are after is how do you address the situation. And the situation now becomes the internal security has to even be, the military must also be involved because of the capacity and gravity of the weight of what we are dealing with. And I told you initially, it's not a conventional war. This is an insurgency that they can take you overnight. And then where the access road they are even using is not where you can go with a motor to go. So you understand. And then the country is so large that you need to mobilize all of this, and that's why I open my statement. If we want to succeed in bringing back school, out of school, back school, we must reassure parents and we must do that. And the only way you can do is through multinational, multi-sectoral, inter-ministerial collaboration to see how we can look at the issue of school attack head on, and then see how we can bring an end to that. Because without doing that, so when you are attacking and you want to bring an end to any situation, you cannot say this is your responsibility. Police, you don't take care of the school. No, there is an attack. And they are using superior power. You have to match them with their also power they are using. And even if it means you mobilize military, and that's what is happening in Kaduna State. And many other states that you have an insurgency.
All right, Dr. Yusuf Tanko Sununu, Minister of State for Education, we thank you for coming on today. And we do hope that those students will be back as soon as possible.
Thank you. And I also want to call on Nigerians to please be prayerful and show understanding and see how we can work together to get those children back. We are all worried. As a father, I've never watched a video. I cried, but I cried when I saw this one. Right. So I think we are all worried, and we are all working towards getting them liberated.
All right.
And you can see, even with all the risk, with minimal security, I have to get myself to Kaduna.
Right.
So that as a ministry, to say that, look, we have identified with you as a government.
All right. Thank you very much indeed. Well, that is the show today as well. We do thank you all for watching. We'll see you again tomorrow. I'm Train Balunosof. Goodbye.
Thank you. Yusuf.
Have a wonderful and productive day. I'm Ayo Makinde.
Well, thank you for staying with us and welcome to News Track on Channels Television. I'm Akeredolu Kikulu. These are the stories we're tracking for you at this time. We begin with a big story we're following at the Senate. It's the morning after the Red Chamber suspended Senator Abdul Ningi for 3 months over comments he made about a purported anomaly in the 2024 budget. The PDP senator representing Bauchi Central has now resigned his position as a chairman of the Northern Senators Forum. What began as a normal plenary gradually drifted into a rowdy session yesterday, with the upper chamber divided over the issue as the debate progressed for over 3 hours. Here's our National Assembly correspondent, Gloria Mezoke, with more.
Budget da aka yi bayan wanda majalisa ta zo ta yi a fili, an koma a yi wani budget a ƙarƙashin ƙasa.
Kamar an yi cushe kenan a ciki?
Ya fi ƙarfin cushe. Kamar an ce an yi budget na trillion 28 misali kenan. Amma mu da muka kididdige sai muka ga budget din nan wajen kusan trillion 25 ne. So kaga akwai trillion 3 a ina suke.
This is what sparked Tuesday's plenary at the Senate. And soon it became obvious that this is not your everyday kind of plenary. Senator Solomon Adiola fired the first salvo, citing relevant sections of the Senate rule on how his privilege and that of the entire Senate has been breached by the chairman of the Northern Senators Forum, Abdul Ningi, through an interview he granted to the BBC.
My privilege has been breached. Also, because I am one of those that participated in the passage of the 2024 appropriation bill. Because preparation of budgets is not only the sole responsibility of the Senate, it includes the Federal House of Reps and even the executive. But as chairman chairing the Senate Committee on Appropriation, who actively participated in the preparation of this document, and for what have transpired within the last 3 days, my privilege has been breached.
To prove his point, he reads the transcript of the interview, which was originally granted in Hausa.
It was said that there was a budget of 28 trillion, but what was passed was 25 trillion. So there is a 3 trillion on top. Where are they? Where is it going? So we need to know this.
Senator Adiola disagrees with the major components of the interview, especially the one bordering on the size of the budget passed. He goes on to explain the reasons why some figures are not captured in the budget breakdown.
There are agencies of the government whose budgets and their details are not contained in this document. Agencies such as the judiciary. The judiciary budget details is not contained in this document. The National Assembly budget details is not contained in this document. The INEC budget details is not contained in this document.
The man at the center of the controversy is given a chance to defend himself.
Let me concur to about 80% of the translation read out by Senator Yai. I think they have done a fair job, except on some issues that they could not understand. First, I have never said somebody was blinded. Secondly, I have never said the budget was flooded. Mr. President, as I speak to you, I do not know your take-home pay. You know my own.
The senators also have a grudge to pick with Senator Kawu from Kano State for posting Senator Ningi's comments on the Northern Senators platform. This is what he had to say about his action.
There was a post at so many platforms, which I posted it to our Northern Senators Forum. Northern Senators Forum. There was no place and nobody hacked my account. And I stand to be corrected. Nobody hacked my account.
Following the submissions by Senators Ningi and Kawu, the situation in the Senate became heated and rowdy.
Some senators here, so-called senior senators, got 500 million each. I am a ranking senator, I didn't get. Did I go to the press? Most of you got. And yes, if we want to go into those issues, excuse me, if we want to go into those issues, yes. So I think that Senator Ningi,
I'm seeing about again. I know.
The Senate President had to invoke the Senate rule to restore order.
Distinguished senators, take your seat, please.
From then on, the senators made several interventions on how to handle the matter.
It is not about Ningi now only. If we are talking about Ningi in this room, but it is about all of us outside. This thing has happened. It has happened. And Ningi was wrong. I told Ningi in here that he made a mistake, that he should stand up and apologize to us first, then apologize that, look, this even figure that I'm looking for, 3 trillion, is here. I'm sorry for the embarrassment I've caused you. That is what I'm suggesting. What distinguished Senator Abdul Ningi, who I respect so well, planned to do or set out to do was tantamount to a civilian coup, which has failed. And in doing this, he wanted to use the platform of Northern Senators Forum. I am a senator of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. I am not a senator of the North, nor am I a senator of the South. I am a Nigeria senator. These rules we agreed on in the first 2-3 cities, that we will operate irrespective of accident or birthplace, and even the factor of religion or any of those primordial sentiments.
Some senators, however, will not want anything short of the big stick.
My first prayer is that the Senate should suspend Senator Abdul Ningi for an initial period of 12 months. Suspend his entitlement and privileges as Senator of the 10th Assembly or 10th Senate, and make him stay away from the National Assembly during the period of suspension.
As moved by Senator Jimo Ibrahim, I amend that the suspension period be reduced to 6 months.
And the Senate now decided to even take a punitive measure. We can reduce it to 3 months.
At the end of the day, the Senate agreed to suspend Senator Abdul Ningi for 3 months.
That distinguished Senator Abdul Ningi of Bauchi Central, having posted falsehood through his interview on BBC Hausa Service and other media, B, and is hereby suspended from all activities of the Senate, including being found within the precincts of the Senate for the next 3 months. 2, distinguished Senator Abdurrahman Ismaila Kawu is also hereby cautioned from posting or reposting unverified or falsehood on his Facebook or Northern Senators Forum to avoid a breakdown of law and order. Is this a true reflection of what transpired in the Committee of the Whole?
Immediately after the pronouncement was made, Senator Ningi was led out of the floor of the Senate by one of the sergeants-at-arms.
The Senate reversed to plenary to enable the chair report progress. I so second.
And now to the Kaduna school abduction. The Inspector General of Police, Kayode Egbetokun, has ordered the immediate establishment of a new police mobile force base and the deployment of special forces to Kuriga community in the state, following the recent abduction of 287 children from the community. The IGP gave the order during a visit to Governor Obasani in the state, where he explained that the police authorities, in collaboration with other security agencies, will adopt both kinetic and non-kinetic approaches to free the abducted school children. Meanwhile, the Minister of State for Education, who was also in the state, has described the abduction as a major setback in the efforts to curb the menace of out-of-school children.
It is 6 days since no fewer than 287 school children were abducted by bandits at Kuriga community in Chukun local government area of Kaduna State. The attack has been generating reactions and has also raised concerns about the government's Safe School initiative. The Inspector General of Police, Kayode Egbetokun, arrives Kaduna State to meet Governor Uba Sani over the unfortunate incident. He is accompanied by some senior police officers. The IGP assures the governor that the police leadership is working with other security agencies to ensure the safe return of the children.
Your Excellency, I want to assure you that the police leadership and indeed the leadership of all security agencies in Nigeria are as concerned as you are over the safety of these children. And we are going to do everything possible with you to ensure that they return safely.
The police boss also outlined some of the strategies for the rescue of the victims and forestalling a future occurrence.
I have instructed the AIG PMF to immediately deploy a unit of PMF to that community, if only to give confidence to the people. The men will be deployed, and with the support that you have pledged to give, I'm sure that the community will start to feel safe again. We are launching the Special Intervention Squad for Kaduna State.
Governor Sani thanks the security agencies for their intervention, promising to give them all the support to ensure the rescue of the abducted students.
We are extremely confident that the school children, by the grace of God, will return back home safely. And of course, we will do everything to ensure that we work closely with the relevant security agencies in Nigeria to ensure that our children are back home safely. And I'm also happy with the decision by the Inspection of Police to quickly deploy mobile base in our Kuriga community.
The Minister of State for Education, Dr. Yusuf Tanko, also visited Governor Sani over the school attack, accompanied by some senior officials of the ministry.
It is our belief that what we have right now, the over 20 million out of school children, which Mr. President prioritized in the 8-point agenda to get them back to school, the attack on school is a major setback.
Lately, there has been a resurgence of school attacks by bandits, primarily targeting children in the northwest and northeast regions. This underscores the imperative for security agencies to reassess their operational strategies and devise more effective measures to combat the scourge of banditry and kidnapping in the area.
Well, there's more on security and from Kaduna State, where at least 61 people have been reportedly kidnapped by bandits at Buba village in Kajuru local government area of the state. The incident occurred in the early hours of yesterday while the villagers were still sleeping. Police authorities said that, and according to the councillor representing the ward, Abubakar Buda, the bandits stormed the community in large numbers and immediately moved from house to house to kidnap the residents, shooting sporadically. Police authorities, as of press time, have not confirmed the attack. Well, he said, it's the councillor, that the timely intervention of the military prevented the bandits from taking away more people, noting that some members of the community sustained varying degrees of injuries while trying to escape. According to the councillor, more security operatives have been stationed in the community to avert further attacks by the marauding bandits. The attack comes barely 5 days after bandits invaded Kuriga community in Shikun, kidnapping 287 school children from the community. The One News Track returns in a moment. You may have heard of alternative music, but have you heard of Alternative High School for Girls? Well, that's a new measure that's been launched in Bauchi State. To join us again.
This week on Gist Nigeria, millions in darkness. Is there an end to Nigeria's electricity troubles? We break down the politics of the power sector as energy experts provide pointers to guide it out of the dark tunnel. Also, meet Miriam Ibrahim, the borehole Wonder Woman, to find the earth to quench thirst in northeast Nigeria. For the stories and more, watch Gist Nigeria from the BBC and Channels Television.
It's a fast beat, unpredictable and full of surprises. The unforgettable moments, unprecedented passion, the victories and defeats in the world of sports makes it engaging. Fasten your seatbelts as we take you through every update in the news and on our shows. We define the moments of true sports. Join us.
Welcome back. Staying with security, operatives of the 63 Brigade Nigerian Army have uncovered a factory used for illegal manufacturing of guns and other security materials in a remote forest in Anyocha North local government area, Delta State. The commander's 63 Brigade, Brigadier General Ugochukwu Unachukwu, led a team of Army officers to the site where they arrested the main suspect, his parents, sister, and 4 others. According to the Army, the factory manufactures about 10 guns per week, which are allegedly handed over to armed robbers and IPOB members for criminal activities.
It's working for them.
Commander 63 Brigade, Brigadier General Ugochukwu Unachukwu, leads a team of its officers to an illegal arms factory at Onitsha Olona in Anyocha North local government area of Delta State.
This is supposed to be a house, but it's part of the factory. I will take you in now. Then before I walk you down to the main factory where the manufacturing is ongoing. Gentlemen, we will question those guys. You will hear from them the quantum of weapons they are manufacturing, both for the insurgents and for armed robbers in Delta State. So these people here are major contributors to the insecurity, not just in Delta State, but even across southeastern Nigeria and neighboring states here. You can see the spanners of their rooms are equally part of the weapon manufacturing. This is part of what we are combating. This is where they mount and be watching the whole area.
Upon arrival, they discovered that the factory has a surveillance post, a generating set connected from a remote location, an oven for melting of iron, and a cache of arms and ammunition.
These people are the operators.
The prime suspect is 22-year-old Emmanuel Ibuka, who claims to have passion for constructing drones and arms.
When I was a kid, when I was at 12, I started practicing on drones, on things that fly, sir. And then gradually I do have this scene whenever I dream. In my dream, there's this white man on white that do come and take me to an arm factory in the dream. So I woke up the first day, I told my dad. I said, somebody came in the dream and took me to an arm factory and was teaching me things about weapons. So that time, it happened to be that there's one instructor in NDA, Nigerian Defense Academy. He came to our house because he's my daddy's friend. So when he came, I told him about the dream. He then said, maybe I'm having a connection with something that has to do with this. I then said, but I have never had anything to do with weapons. But if I see it, it always looks like something that I've used, like something I've worked on before.
His parents and siblings, who were also apprehended, insist the guns and arms are not manufactured and sold to criminals but legitimate security personnel.
I'm not involved in it.
You're not involved in it?
I was farming there. My wife is even there. My petenia is there. So I went to collect it. So my son called me that I should go and rest, not to have my stress.
They repair for the vigilante and they also repair for the police.
In all, 8 suspects involved in the family business have been arrested and are to be handed over to relevant agencies for further investigation and prosecution.
Also, the power sector now. The Kano State Distribution Company has blamed the shortage of power supply on inadequate supply from the Transmission Company of Nigeria, as well as vandalism. According to the Chief Executive Officer, Abubakar Sadiq, the company receives 180 megawatts of electricity when it requires 600 megawatts to adequately distribute to Kano, Katsina, and Jigawa states.
As at now, KEDCO receives an average of 180 megawatts on a daily basis. And in terms of requirements to provide 24 hours supply to our teeming customers within the 3 states, we need an average of 600 megawatts to really supply electricity 24 hours. So you can see the huge gap in terms of what we receive and what we really require to make electricity available to our esteemed customers for 24 hours. Also, in terms of efforts to really address the vandals, if you may recall, we had a kind of engagement with the security agencies in Kano, police, Hizba, and other security personnel where we formed a joint task force to really safeguard our distribution equipment. And this has really yielded a result in terms of apprehending some of these bundles. Just last two weeks, 6 bundles were apprehended within Kano State, and they are currently undergoing prosecution process. And at the end of it, we will make it public so that people will understand the effort that we are making in terms of arresting these bundles, as well as prosecuting this bundle to serve as deterrents to others that are really seeing this as a lucrative business.
Don't be afraid of your dreams, no matter how small it is. Those are the words of the First Lady of Nigeria, Senator Rotimi Tinubu, to young girls and women who aspire to become better. She was speaking in Bauchi during the official commissioning of the Alternative High School for Girls in the state. Our correspondent, Hajar Ali, reports.
Bauchi is hosting the First Lady of Nigeria, Senator Rotimi Tinubu, who is visiting the state capital to unveil the Alternative High School for Girls initiative. Governor Bala Mohammed and other state government officials are already on the ground to witness the unveiling of the project, which aims to give girls whose education had been impeded by socio-economic and cultural factors a second chance in learning. The facility, which houses 3 classrooms, catering hall, a digital literacy hall, and a tailoring workshop, is part of the renewed hope agenda of the First Lady, supported by the Universal Basic Education Commission, UBEC.
The Commission has so far constructed 11 of these schools, along with numerous girl child and boy child centers in different parts of the country. The idea behind the program is to provide opportunities to the learners to complete basic education and also acquire entrepreneurial skills in order to make them self-reliant.
Senator Tinubu rises to speak about the project and the inspiration she got by her experience as a school teacher.
I remember when I was a classroom teacher, most of my best girls dropped out of school, either through pregnancy, and they are very brilliant girls. And I, for one, I said, the best way to treat other people is to put them in your shoes. I said, if this had been me, would I have not wanted a second chance? That was why I thought every child who makes a mistake deserves a second chance.
The project will be supervised by the state government, and Governor Bala Mohammed pledges to make it work.
Mrs. Rotimi Tinubu came to Bauchi to show you that she is mommy. We are really very grateful to you and your husband, UBEC, for doing this. As the Executive Secretary has said, we have taken upon our shoulder to make it work.
Next, the First Lady, accompanied by the governor and his wife, cuts the ribbon to officially open the facility
for the benefit of all our young girls, and especially the girl child. Thank you, Lord.
As she takes a tour of the building. Hajara Aliyu, Channels Television News.
Business news now. Economic think tank and advisory firm Financial Derivatives Company says it expects Nigeria's February inflation to climb higher to 31.04% from the current 29.9% as the country awaits the official report later this week. According to FDC's latest forecast, which is based on its Lagos market survey and econometric model, food inflation is seen rising to 36.87%, while core inflation is seen higher at 26 or 24.62%. FDC notably attributes the astronomical increase in the price of basic food commodities like beans, rice, tomatoes, and pepper as the major factors driving the cost push inflation, as well as the impact of a dollar exchange rate. Meanwhile, the National Bureau of Statistics is scheduled to release the February inflation report on Friday. Now, with the challenge of access to foreign exchange pervaded major sectors in Nigeria, financial experts have called for more transparency to address the issues of liquidity. The founder and CEO of Nairametrics, Mr. Ugodre Obichukwu, gave the recommendation on our Business Morning program, where he also highlighted some other solutions to the country's lingering forex crisis.
If you listen closely to the CBN's policies and their strategy, they are saying, look, let us try and sort out price discovery. Let's, as much as possible, make sure there's transparency in how the exchange rate is determined. You don't want speculators determining exchange rate. You don't want foreign agents, in quotes, determining exchange rate. You want the exchange rate to be determined fairly by the market. So once you're able to achieve that, then you can now start to work on other levers or, official levers that you know typically affects exchange rate. And so the next step that you've seen is now increasing the interest rate. And so you've seen MPR go to 22.75. You've seen automobiles go to 21.05, which actually is the highest we've also seen on record. You've also seen treasury bills go up as well to almost 20%. And all that is geared towards trying to attract foreign investor inflow. By the way, we call that hot money inflows because that is foreign portfolio investors inflow. So the thinking is that if you're able to attract foreign investor inflow, albeit for a short period, 6 months to 1 year, then that can provide enough liquidity to achieve exchange rate stability. And that can also be the right buffer to have a lot more foreign investors start to come back into Nigeria.
And outside the country, 3 Egyptian Coptic monks have been killed inside a monastery in South Africa, according to a statement put out by the South African Archdiocese of the Coptic Orthodox Church. Fathers Takla Musa, Mina Ava Marcus, and Justus Ava Marcus were brutally murdered on Tuesday. They were killed at the St. Mark and St. Samuel the Confessor Monastery located in Cullinan, which is a small town 30 kilometers east of the capital, Pretoria. An Egyptian member of the church has been arrested as a possible suspect. The murder has the entire Coptic Orthodox community in South Africa and beyond in shock, with Archbishop Angelus of the Coptic Orthodox Church in London describing it as saddening and shocking. Well, that's News Track for this hour. Thank you for watching. I'm Akeredolu.
Express with Pastor Femi Fashiru, the resident pastor of KICC, Maryland, Lagos. Winning Ways Express is a program that brings messages of hope to the hopeless and the living word to the dying world, touching lives with a timeless truth. Through his ministry of the word, Pastor Femi will enrich your life, challenge and motivate you as he proclaims the good news of Jesus Christ. Winning Ways Express with Pastor Femi Fashiru, dynamic messages that will change your life.
Hi, welcome to today's Winning Ways Express broadcast. Romans chapter 1 verse 16 says the gospel of Christ is the power of God unto salvation. I am convinced that today's broadcast is going to bring you healing, deliverance, salvation, and prosperity. Please sit back, watch, and be blessed.
Stronger in the presence of
mother under the sound of my voice, don't let anyone stigmatize you. Don't let anyone tell you you are useless. Don't let anybody tell you you are not useful. Don't let anybody tell you you are not knowledgeable. Don't let anybody tell you that you don't have the capacity to do this, to do that. I want you to know, as far as motherhood is concerned, there are innate capacities that God has put in the inside of you that will never ever raise their heads until the situation arises. When you find yourself in such a tight corner, please believe in the God that is in the inside of you, that whatever it is that is needed for that mountain to become a plain ground is going to come out from within you. I don't know what crossed her mind. Something in the inside of her was like, no, you can take everything from me, devil, but you are not going to mess up with the destiny of my children. That is a real mother. That's a real mother. That's a real mother. It was as if she was fighting enemies that were stronger than her. Creditors were coming. They've taken everything in her house. They've taken the chairs, they've taken the beds, they've taken everything they could take. But this time, they were already on the way, coming to take her sons from her. And she was like, hey, heaven and earth may pass away, but please understand, you can take everything from me, but you're not touching my child as long as I am alive. As long as I am alive. So Bible says the first thing that happened to her was that she had the first sense of responsibility. Something has to be done. It's not my job, but something has to be done. I am not the one that is supposed to do this, but someone have to do it. That is a real mother. That is a real mother. A real mother does not say, this is for your dad, this is your mom. Whatever your hand finds to do, do it and do it well. That is the code of a real mother. A real mother is a helpmate. A real mother is a helpmate. A real mother is not the one that looks at the weakness in our house and begins to go to the in-laws and go to our parents' house and begin to rubbish our husband. No, she takes the responsibility. If anything, if there is any reporting that has to be done, she's not going to do it with no man, but she's going to go to God. And that day, Elisha was the representative of God because the veil had not been torn in the temple. The veil had not been torn. So when she went to Elisha, don't get it twisted, don't get it wrong. When she went to Elijah, she was going to God. Every mother under the sound of my voice, if you don't know what to do, please go to God. Please go to God. Go on your knees. Talk to God about your children. Talk to God about your house. Talk to God about that which you are supposed to be responsible for. Even though if you feel that you have not been prepared enough, go to God. Go to God. Oh, had she tried to solve the problem? She did. Has she failed in solving the problem so many times? Yes. But a real mother is not a quitter. She did not quit until the job is done. A real mother has the spirit of Jesus. Jesus is not going to step down. Jesus is not going to back down. Jesus is not going to come down off the cross of Calvary until it is finished. A real mother gets the job done. She hangs in there until that child becomes somebody. She doesn't quit. She hangs in the place of prayer. She hangs in the place of guidance. She hangs in the place of worship and praise until that child becomes somebody. She hangs in there by the hospital bed until that child gets well. That's a real mother. That's a real mother. While the husband, while the daddy may be all over the whole place, of course, trying to get the finances and the resources, a real mother hangs in there. A real mother hangs in there. Let me say one or two things to our young girls who are under the sound of my voice. I know that you parade yourself, you celebrate yourselves as being Gen Z, Gen Z, Gen X, Gen Millennial, Gen this, Gen that. You can be Gen whatever you want to be. But I beg you, just make sure that you still have some of the genes of our mothers of old. Have the genes of the character of our mothers of old. Our mothers of old are so committed that they can give their blood just for the sake of their children. We live in a world today before people know, say Jack Robinson and the challenges of marriage, they are quick to carry their bag and say they're leaving. What has your eyes seen yet? Excuse me. Excuse me. Excuse me. Where are you living for? Do you know what kind of demon is out there? Why don't you deal with the demon that is in the house and get the demon house rather than you going to meet some other demon? They might just be stronger than the one you left. Because there is something with the Gen Zs, and they think that everything all around, or Gen X, or the millennial, they just think that life is just about just happy, 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 happy. Life indeed can be roller coaster. Our mothers are not quitters. For the sake of their children, for the responsibility of a mother, they hang in there. They're like, if I go away, who am I going to be leaving my kids with? They hang in there. They hang in there. Not that I'm in support of abuse, but some of our mothers, we have become what we have become today because they had the resilience to even withstand some level and degree of abuse that life gave to them. You can choose what you do in life, but you cannot choose what life dishes out to you. You can't. You can't. Our mothers will hang in there. They will have to go through some family abuse. Somebody will talk down at them. Somebody will tell them to stand up for a little kid in the house to sit down because they say that she's Yahweh in the house. You see a mother that saw when this child was born and she's not allowed to even call that child by name. She will have to have some name like Akweke. Not allowed to call by name because irrespective of the age of that child, they said because you have come into this family as a wife, a one born in the house is better than you in the house. But yet, our mothers, for the sake of their own children, will withstand that, what culture and tradition has brought their way, because they understand that they have laid their hands on the plow. They were not going to withdraw it. A real mother is not a quitter. A real mother is not a quitter. Someday, you might have to let your mama tell you while she's walking and limping, just before you begin to think and you think that your mama is not looking beautiful like she ought to. Well, she took in some beatings. Sometimes they were emotional beatings. The Bible says this woman cried. She had emotional pain that was expressed in her cry. What was it about? Because somebody was coming to take her child. And then her emotion was mixed up to the point that she couldn't contain it. And she was walking on the street and she was crying. She wasn't looking beautiful at that particular point in time. Even when people outside are ridiculing her and mocking her, that she looks ugly, you better not, because you are the reason why she's ugly. If she was ugly, your papa wouldn't have married her. But since you came along, She became ugly because of you. 9 months you were in that tummy, eating all the food that she was eating. She's ugly because of you. When it was time for you to come out, she had to push like she had never pushed before. Everybody was out there in the labor room, and the best they could do was to say push. Everybody was making the command push. The doctor was saying push. The nurse was saying push. Your papa was saying push. Everybody had something to tell her to do, but nobody was going to help her to do nothing. She pushed you out all by herself. And the scar that is on her body is because you had to be pushed out. Not only when you were being born, but also she had to push you out nursery and push you out primary school and push you out second. Even when you got married, she's still pushing you. She's still pushing you. She's still pushing you. Guess what? Some mothers are going to push not only their daughters, but they are also going to push their grandchildren. When you want to face your career, you want to do this, who is the person that comes home to come and be babysitting? She sat with you. She's going to sit with your children. And if the Lord gives her the grace, she's going to sit with your children's children. So many dents on her. So many scars on her. But yet you are the one that is making your face with a lot of mascara and masquerade. And then you still don't think that you need to make your mama beautiful, so that the scar can be covered by buying her some nice chiffon. You think chiffon is for Gen Z and Gen... No, grandmama and mama can also handle chiffon. You're grumbling about the economy and grumbling about the economy and grumbling about the economy, and you're not sending nothing to mama on a monthly basis. I think I'm helping a mama over here. You're not sending nothing to mama on a monthly basis. Mama is not on your payroll. You only give to mama when you have excess. But please remember, when you were growing up, mama did give to you when you were having excess. You were the first person that she paid before she looked after herself. In fact, mama never wore something good like she ought to. You never have no beautiful picture of mama because mama couldn't wear something good and leave your bills unpaid. This woman cried. She took on emotional pain because of her children. She switched the gear and went on to take on spiritual responsibilities. Now her husband was the one that was dealing with the things of the spirit in the house, as it was expected when he was around. Particularly, he was also a pastor in training. But this time the man is not around and he's saying, I don't care about gender. I'm going to where my husband used to go concerning these children. If he left these children with me, I am going to make sure that nothing goes wrong with them. Whatever a man can do, a real mother can match it when she has to match it. A real mother does not compete with her husband, but she complements her husband. Where there is a shortfall, she rises up. She rises up. She rises up. I am not one of the ones that believe that a woman should just go and do what a man is doing, because God didn't call you to do that. I've heard some messages even in the house of God that talks about a woman to show that a woman is a woman. But the Bible says that treat her like a weaker vessel. A woman shouldn't show off for everything. When the mechanic needs to look at the vehicle, the woman shouldn't show off for everything. You shouldn't know where the carburetor is if you have a man in the house. When a woman knows where the carburetor is, when a woman knows where the this and that is in the car, something is either wrong with the man, or either wrong with the woman, or either wrong with the two of them. Because there are some women that you cannot help. They must only help themselves. They are somebody. Whatever you can do, I can do. We know. But God does not want you to do all that you can do. That is why he has surrounded you with a man that should do certain piece of it for you. Because you have to be on the reserve bench. Don't get exhausted before you are called in to come and score the goal. You are on the reserve bench not because you are not good, but you are on the reserve bench because you have to be preserved, so that when the time comes, surely victory is assured. You are not going to be spent before you are needed. Are you listening to me? I don't know whether you have realized it. I've even moved into the apostolic right now. There is correction in the church. Some messages have gone in the church and telling the woman to do this, to do this, to do this, to do that, because they don't understand God. Looking at it with the eye of the man, thinking that the woman is relegated. And that is why the woman is sidelined. You are not sidelined, you are in reserve. You are in reserve. Imagine if there is a need to change somebody on the pitch and there is no one in reserve because everyone is injured. This woman must have been in reserve, but while in reserve, she was looking at the pitch and she understood what was going on. So when the time comes for her to come on the pitch, she knew where to go to. So she ran to Elisha, and said, "My husband, your servant is dead. He has left me with kids. Creditors are coming to take them. That's not going to happen." And Elisha knows that this woman means business. If I don't sort her out, I am not going to hold the next service. And instantly he says, "What do you want me to do for you?" And then he asks, "What do you have in the house?" The woman says, "We have nothing. Everything is exhausted, but a jar of oil." One thing about a mother is that a mother who has kids will use things but will never, ever, ever use everything. She's always thinking about the children. Remember the widow of Zarephath? She says, "Well, there is famine in the land, there is no food, but I only have what? The flour." Something is always left with a mother. Every woman under the sound of my voice, never allow your bank account to come to zero again in your lifetime. Manage your finances, that you are never ever put in a situation where you will go and be begging. Never. She said, "I have nothing. I don't have TV. I have nothing. I don't have sound system. I have nothing in my house. I don't even have the electric cooker. I have nothing in my house. I don't even have SETI in my house. But I have a jar of oil. Only if there is anything to cook, I'll be ready to cook it. I have a jar of oil." And the man of God says, "You have the capacity to be a business tycoon. You've never done it before, but there is always going to be a first time. Opportunity has come. You will know how blessed you have always been with business capacity." He says not only that you have the capacity to be a business tycoon, you also have the capacity to perpetuate it even into your generations to come. Praise the Lord. I'm sure today's broadcast has really, really, really blessed your life. Contact us to get the complete message. And by the way, if you are yet to make Jesus your Lord and your Savior, I want to give you the opportunity right now to make him your Lord and your Savior. All you need to do is to say this simple prayer with me. But when you do, please mean it with all of your heart. Say with me, Lord Jesus, I believe and confess that you are the Son of God. You came from heaven to earth. You shed your blood. You died for me so that I may have my sins washed away and have eternal life. Lord Jesus, come into my heart. Come into my life. Come and live my life for me. Thank you for forgiving me my sin. Thank you for saving me. I am born again. I'm now a child of God. Thank you for this new life. In Jesus' mighty name, amen. My friend, if you did say that prayer with me and you meant it with all of your heart, I want you to know that you are indeed born again. God bless you. Please text me on 0807-739-0440. Let me know that you just gave your life to Christ. And if you have any testimony, text me on the same number. Let me know what the Lord is doing in your life through our broadcast. Until next time on Winning Ways Express, I want you to know that it is not over until you win.
We believe that you're blessed by the message. You can order the complete message now. Send us an email. Contact us at kiccnigeria.org. Messages are available in MP3 and MP4 formats. Pastor Femi Fashera has written a number of books that will bless your life. Be yourself. Fasting for a New Year, 10 Miracles of Fasting, The Anatomy of Prosperity, Maximize Now, Holy Fire, Married but Living Single, Pillars of Marriage, Get Married Right, Marriage Fine-Tuning, and Marriage Fine-Tuning Nuggets. Search for Femi Fashera on www.amazon.com to download the Kindle. God bless you.
Thank you for following Winning Ways Express. I'm sure it's been a huge blessing to you and your family. As I travel from city to city and state to state, particularly in the country of Nigeria where I live, I come across people who tell me that Winning Ways Express has been a huge blessing to their businesses, homes, families, marriages, and their lives in general. As you know, the gospel of Christ is free, but the transmission of same into homes via television and into cars via radio is expensive. This is the reason why I am making an appeal to you to help me to keep Winning Ways Express on television and on radio. I'm appealing to you to financially support us. Be a Winning Ways Express covenant partner today. You can give weekly, monthly, quarterly, or once in a year. But I want to assure you that as you make this vision happen, God will make your own vision to happen too. Please support us, because your gift will go a long way to be a blessing to those who watch us on television and listen to us on radio. Please call 0805-605-2300 for somebody to guide you on how to be a Winning Ways Express covenant partner today. Or you can follow the information on the screen. And I pray for you that as you commit to be a Winning Ways Express covenant partner today, God will raise divine helpers that will help you in achieving your vision and your dreams for your destiny as well. Thank you so much. God bless you.
KICC Maryland is the home of champions.
I'm a champion.
I'm champion. I'm a champion.
Join the KICC Maryland family every Sunday at the Prayer Dome from 9 a.m. for the word, the warmth, the worship. Thousands of believers call KICC Maryland their home. Come and be empowered and inspired to be the best that you can be. We are waiting to welcome you at KICC Maryland or at a branch near you in Nigeria. KICC Maryland. Come, see, belong.
Experience the opulence and security of Swiss Street Doors. With over 30 years experience, exclusive with a touch of history and craftsmanship, Swiss Street Doors are made from the finest ancient aga and ivory wood. A range of exclusive armored doors, elegant interior doors carefully crafted by world-renowned architects and engineers. At Swiss Street, a door is much more, plus premium quality onyx stones and luxury interiors. Visit Swiss Street today or call now. Swiss Street, blend of beauty and security.